Hi, I'm Andy Shalal. I'm the owner of Busboys and Poets. We are so happy to have Rock Newman and the Rock Newman Show join our tribe here. We are a tribe. This is a place where racial and cultural connections are consciously uplifted, a place where art, culture, and politics intentionally collide. This is a space to take a deliberate pause and feed your mind, body, and soul. We believe by creating such a space, we can actually change our community, change DC, and change the world for the better. And now, the Rock Newman Show.
Good morning, folks. Today is Saturday, October the 12th, 2013. I am Rock Newman, and this is the Rock Newman Show. I am most happy to be broadcasting from the stage of the Langston Hughes Room at Busboys and Poets, 14th and V Street, Northwest Washington, D.C. If you're tuning in here and you've got some flexibility in your schedule this morning, I invite you to come on down and join us for some great breakfast and great conversation. We have a dynamic, I would say historic show today. We have three D.C. true legends, three icons. In the first hour, we have Dr. Bernard Demczuk. Dr. Demczuk is Vice President of George Washington University, and maybe more importantly, the mayor of U Street. And we'll talk about that in a moment. In our second hour, we have someone who has been feted throughout this land, has been applauded for her unselfish work on behalf of the disadvantaged and the underprivileged. I've known her in excess of 30 years, and frankly speaking, it's hard to think of an individual more committed to the disadvantaged than who is the person that is going to be our guest in the 10 o'clock hour. Her name is Carol Fennelly. She is the creator of Hope House, and her stellar track record as a humble, effective servant is truly without peer. We are going to welcome her in the 10 o'clock hour. And in the 11 o'clock hour, we have a gentleman by the name of Rhozier Roach Brown. He is a producer and host at WPFW radio station, founder and director of the Inner Voices, a nationally traveling prison theatrical troupe. Roach has, one of the ways that we described Roach yesterday is that we're going to talk about the many lives of Roach Brown. He is quite a character, quite an individual, a DC institution, and I'm happy to have him. But it is the 9 o'clock hour now, and in the 9 o'clock hour, as I said earlier, Dr. Bernard Demczuk, welcome to the Rock Newman Show.
Thank you, Rock Newman. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And may I say, Rock Newman, thank you for doing this. I mean, my goodness, this information, this dialogue, this social consciousness that you raise in the city, thank you for doing this. The whole region applauds you. Thank you for this show.
Bernard, I want to thank you for that, and let me just say something about that. When I was looking for a broadcast home, and I became aware that there may be a possibility at Busboys and Poets, I came in here and I was looking at their menu, hungry as I could be. And once I ordered, I started to look through the mission statement that was crafted by the visionary Andy Shalal.
Yeah.
And it talked about cultural and racial upliftment.
Right.
And I was drawn to this place, and, you know, I could not be happier about where I'm doing the show. So,
you know, food and justice go together very well.
Well, I certainly want to talk about that.
Food and justice goes together very well when we talk about how food has been used over the decades, particularly in the civil rights movement. It's a very important part of social justice and equality. So you're in the right place.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I introduced you as Dr. Bernard Demczuk.
That's right.
And you now are the recipient of a PhD in Black history and culture.
That's right.
And I've heard you say in the past that it is, in order to understand Black history, you must understand Black culture.
Yeah.
Can you tie that together for me?
Yeah, indeed I can. You know,
what do that mean?
What do that mean is part of the process. When you say what do that mean, when you say I is hungry, when you talk about ebonics, when you talk about language, when you talk about hip hop today, The hip-hop generation has created a whole new language that many of us utilize all the time. We don't even know we're utilizing it. It is culture. Hip-hop is a historic moment. It starts, of course, with rap, and this idea of rap starts in 1979 at 1520 Sedgwick Avenue in the Bronx by a rapper by the name of Kool Herc. And he begins to spin records, and he begins to put things together, and he begins to talk over the records.
Yeah.
That is culture, and that now is a historic phenomenon. Rap and hip-hop is a historic phenomenon. When we talk about African American history, we have to take it all the way back to the west coast of Africa. And we can't understand American history nor black history unless we understand the cultural impact that West Africa had on America, whether it's dance or whether it's religion or whether it's music or whether it's language or whether it's cooking. Let's just talk about cooking. Let's talk about food. Where do chicken wings come from? Where do ribs come from? This is a trick question. Where they come from, of course, is the chicken and the pig, but they really come from the scraps of the master's table.
Yes.
So when the master throws the scraps out and the enslaved woman cook gathers those scraps, takes it back to the village, or takes it back to the slave quarters, puts the spices on it from Africa and the Caribbean, wraps it around in leaves, buries it into the ground, it comes marinated. She brings it out a week or two later, she puts it over the fire, and voila, you got barbecued chicken wings and ribs. That's culture. That's an appreciation of culture and appreciation of black history. So when we're putting together religion, and we're putting together music and dance, and we're putting together language and fashion, I mean, look at the fashion today. That's culture. It's African-American creativity, and everybody loves it. And it's an American culture, not just a black culture.
Let me ask you something. We live in a society that unfortunately appears to be becoming more and more polarized. You have you haven't just received a PhD in black history and culture. You, long before you got those lettered credentials, had a passion for the subject. Where does that come from, one? And two, you as a Caucasian, do you get any kind of pushback either from black students that you're trying to teach black history to, or do some of the white students say, well, you know, what makes you want to do this?
It's a very good question. And let me say to your listeners and to your audience, it's never too young to go back to school.
Yes.
I mean, you're never too young, never too old to go back to school. Right. I got my PhD when I was 60 years old. So being in the civil rights movement in the 60s and the 70s and then throughout the 80s and 90s with Jesse Jackson and Marion Barry and doing the whole thing that I've been doing, I was making history, as it were. Yeah. But then when I transferred out of Marion Barry's administration to the university, I realized that if I start taking courses, I can get a doctorate in exactly the things that I was doing for 30 years. Right. So you're never too old to go back to school and get your degrees, or whatever degrees you want to get. So yeah, I was 60 years old when I got my PhD in African American history. You said that I have this history. It's easier for a white person to teach black history and culture if they have a history in the struggle. So most of my students and most people know me, know who I am, and know that I've been to jail 23 times for civil rights activities, not for breaking and entering, not for carjacking, for trying to do the right thing. So when you have that history, people don't really question who are you as a white person.
You have that street cred.
Street cred, and also I was fortunate that I was loyal to two people in particular, Marion Barry and Jesse Jackson. And when you stay loyal, that begins to redound to your benefit because people begin to trust you.
You know what? This is unapologetically a Washington, D.C. show. The Rock Newman Show? Yeah. It's about Washington, D.C. and the world. We are based here, and we unapologetically look to export all the greatness of Washington, D.C. around the world. And to that extent, I'm going to say something. Because of some of his personal foibles and frailties, Marion Barry has been derided and made a caricature of. I've spoken to Marion over the last couple of weeks or so, and, he certainly is having some struggles with his health. He is mentally alert. People see him as a result of those foibles that I talked about almost as a cartoon. They don't understand that perhaps that for the first 6 or 7 years that he was the mayor of this city, he might have been one of the best mayors that this country has ever known.
That's right. There's no question about that. Let me speak to Marion Barry for a second, but go back to your first question to tie it all in. This has been known as Chocolate City. In 1970, this was a 75% African-American city. 75%. Controlled, by the way, by a small white minority in Congress. Completely controlled.
Right.
African-Americans had very little power in the city in the 60s and 70s. Marion Barry comes in and turns that upside down.
Flips
with the Free D.C. movement, running for city council, running for mayor. When you asked me about how am I received, I will tell you this very clearly. It's not just the fact that I have street cred, it's that the fact that black community has always accepted other people and cultures.
Yeah.
Black community has suffered from this discrimination and this oppression for 400 years. They're not going to discriminate against other people. So when I came into the culture, and Marion Barry was one of the first people who picked me, grabbed me and said, this young white guy was okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to put him on my team.
Yeah.
The African-American culture has always been inclusive. Has always been. They don't discriminate. Howard Theater was always open to all races.
Yeah, that's the
white theaters were closed to the black.
That's such
people.
a point. Oftentimes, when they talk about, for example, Sunday morning being the most discriminated, most segregated hour of the entire week, because you got white churches over here and black churches over there. There are black churches because blacks weren't allowed to go to white churches, and never, ever has a Howard University, a Morgan State, a University of the District of Columbia, or any other institution controlled by any blacks ever been about exclusionary practices.
I'll go one step further. You're absolutely correct. As a matter of fact, when a white person goes to a black church, they roll out the red carpet.
They're welcome.
Put you in the front seat, put you in the front pew. Willie Wilson and Reverend Wallach at Shiloh, they're always so welcoming to any white people.
Of course.
Was it just me back in the day? But
right.
Whereas the white churches were the opposite. So we're trying to figure this out now. We're no longer the Chocolate City. I call us the chocolate vanilla swirl.
That's a good thing.
And we're moving. Yeah, it is a good thing. And we're moving towards, I think, mocha melt.
Yeah.
Because we got Africans, we got Ethiopians, we got Spanish, we got Latino, Asians. Now we're becoming much, much more of a tolerant, accepting, diverse city.
You know what, Bernie? The tagline to the Rock Newman Show is "We are one."
We are one. Yeah.
And we are. And it is the goal of this program to make that a reality. The reality is we are one. We don't act and behave like we do. But again, that's a very intentional tagline, because that is part of the goal. So, well, I have an agenda, and that's part of the agenda.
That's right.
When we leave this table, when I leave this microphone, every single Saturday, I am hoping that we've done something to enlighten people, and if it's just a small smidgen, help make the world a better place to live. Let me ask you, because you mentioned two names. You mentioned the loyalty that you maintained to Marion Barry, and also to Jesse Jackson. Mm-hmm. Jesse Jackson is another one that, as he has become one of the old lions, I see not the kind of respect and appreciation for the work and the commitment that he has had to making the world a better place for everybody, and his strong advocacy to civil rights and to human rights. I would venture to say that had Jesse Jackson not run in 1984 and 1988, that perhaps Barack Obama would not have or could not have run in 2008.
Yeah, and I will take that a little bit further, and I will be more scientific about it and to say this, that between 83 and 92, between 83 and 92, 1982, I was with Reverend Jackson both in the 84 and 88 campaigns, then the Rainbow Coalition in 87 through the 90s. What Reverend Jackson was able to do during those years of him running for presidency, and then when he built the Rainbow Coalition, he was able to add at least 2.5 million new voters on the voting rolls in the South. 2.5 million.
And if he ended his career right there, he should go down with banners waving.
Absolutely. And because he was able to build such a large block of African American voting prowess in the South, Bill Clinton was able to build on that and win in 92.
Yes.
Bill Clinton was able to win because of what we did between 84 and 91. When Bill Clinton wins, then he opens the door, then you got all kinds of opportunities for somebody else. Absolutely, Barack Obama is president. God bless him. He's a great president. He deserves all the praise, but we all need to thank Jesse Jackson.
Absolutely. Folks, this is the Rock Newman Show. Today is Saturday, October the 12th. We are at the Langston Hughes Room at Busboys and Poets, where they serve incredible food. When we come back, though, we're going to actually talk about a specific food, a specific sandwich that some of you might know about, some of you might not know about. It's the Ben's Chili Bowl Chili Half Smoke. Bernard Demczuk also has a PhD in how to eat a Ben's Chili Bowl Half Smoke. We'll be back in a few moments at the Rock Newman Show at Busboys and Poets.
This is Leprechaun Tim Pohanka from Pohanka Nissan and Pohanka Hyundai. It's hard to be down on your luck when you're Virginia's first choice for new Nissan and Hyundais, but I need to sell 60 cars this week. Right now, I'll pay you big bucks for your good luck. Bring down any good luck charm you've got, and based on the sale price of the car you choose, I'll give you up to $4,777 off any nicer, newer car this week. Today, your lucky penny is worth plenty, up to $4,777 off any nicer, newer car you want. Stop moping and hoping you'll get approved. With my For the People credit approval process, the banks are looking to get lucky and lend to you, even if you've been turned down before. Bring me any good luck charm and I'll give you up to $4,777 off any nicer, newer car today. Hurry, once I get rid of 60 cars, the luck runs out. All offers require bank approval, so call us at 1-800-POHANKA, visit Pohanka Nissan and Pohanka Hyundai on Route 1 in Fredericksburg, or better yet, log on to timpohankaforthepeople.com. And when we make a deal, I promise it'll be your lucky day. I'm Tim Pohanka, and I'm a leprechaun for the people.
Hello to all my friends in the DMV. I am Rock Newman from the Rock Newman Show. I want to tell you about the MGM Grand National Harbor, the most exciting project to come to the District, Maryland, or Virginia in quite some time. You're going to have great fun. Come on down, support this project with all you have. It is going to be wonderful for the area. We're going to increase our tax base. We're going to get funding for the police department, for ambulance, for fire, for education. It is really a project that is going to benefit our area. Folks, we want to support in a very strong DMV kind of way this great project from the MGM Grand National Harbor.
And now, the Rock Newman Show.
Welcome back, folks. This is Saturday, October the 12th, 2013. This is the Rock Newman Show, and my guest in the 9 o'clock hour today is Dr. Bernard Demczuk. Before we go to Dr. Demczuk, I want to share something with you regarding the Howard University homecoming. There is, please join the College of Arts and Sciences on Friday, October the 25th at 7 p.m. as they celebrate Homecoming 2013 with a special cruise on the Potomac aboard the Spirit of Washington. If any of you have not had an opportunity to take that cruise, it is an absolute jewel. Tickets are $150 per person. The important thing here is that 100% of the net proceeds will be going towards the support of the College of Arts and Sciences Alumni Scholarship Fund. They will be departing from Pier 4 at 6th and Water Street, Southwest Washington at 7:30 p.m. with an 8 p.m. sharp departure time. Come out and support the worthy cause. For more information regarding this cruise, please call 202-238-2518. I'm going to give that number out one more time, 202-238-2518. Before I went to break, Dr. Demczuk, we talked about something that's near and dear to your heart, something that you've written quite extensively about, something that Bill Cosby has gone around the world and talked about, including the late night shows and everywhere else he has an opportunity. And that is that lip smacking, get chili down your arm, all over your shirt and anywhere else, and don't be mad. Chili half smoke from Ben's Chili Bowl.
Hello.
Here now on the Rock Newman Show, we're going to break new territory and have you to please describe how to eat a Ben's Chili Bowl, chili dog, and half smoked sandwich.
Well, thank you. I will be delighted. But let me show everybody. Is this on TV?
Yeah, it is on TV.
Let me show
Sure
everybody my very famous essay. It's called Bernie's Dog Bite Method.
Hello.
How to properly eat a Ben's Chili Bowl classic chili dog. Now, before I begin, we have a mutual friend. His name is Petey Green.
Petey Green.
Have you ever seen Petey Green's
Eat a watermelon.
How to Eat a Watermelon?
How to Eat a Watermelon.
That's where I got this from.
Hello. You bring up Petey Green before I did, because I was going to, look, this is Dr. Bernard Demczuk. He wasn't always Dr. Bernard Demczuk. There was a time when he was a prison guard.
That's right.
And we want to talk about that, and we want to talk about that person you just mentioned, Petey Green. But before we get to that, we're going to get back to the dog.
So what happened was that I remember Petey Green showing the world how to properly eat a watermelon.
That's right.
Funny.
Apps, folks, if you haven't seen it, Google Petey Green eating a watermelon.
Go to YouTube, How to Eat a Watermelon by Petey Green. Anyway, that's why I came up with this. So one night, let me just give you the background. One night, I'm at my house. I live right near Ben's Chili Bowl in Shaw. I'm at my house one night reading late at night, about 9 or 10 o'clock at night. I get very hungry. I decide to walk from my house to Ben's just to get a hot dog. I walk in, and it's like very few people there. It's like 11 o'clock at night. And there are four young, this is 1999. There are four young white kids sitting at a table. I'm sitting at the counter.
Right.
Four young white kids sitting at the table. And the young kids back then, you know, they had the green hair and the pink hair.
Spiked up and the whole bit. Yeah, sure.
That's what they were. And they're sitting there eating, and then the waitress brings them the chili dogs. And I hear, they're behind me. I hear this lady go, "Ooh, I can't eat this.
Yeah.
Look at all of this stuff all over the place." And then she goes, "Could I have a knife and fork, please?"
Yes.
I turned around. I said,
"Blasphemy."
"You do not." I said, "You go to the baseball game, you do not eat a hot dog at a baseball game with a knife and fork."
Right.
So I turned around, and I didn't really yell at him, but I was kind of like upset.
Right.
So I said, "Listen, let me show you how to do this." So I got my chili dog, and then I began to demonstrate.
Yeah.
Because I've been eating them since 1967, so I have a little experience.
You said it was around 10 o'clock when you got hungry to go over there. A lot of my friends get hungry around 10 o'clock after some activity.
It could be 10 o'clock in the morning. So anyway, So as I finished showing them what to do, then I sit back at the counter and I actually write this all night long.
Right there.
At 3 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
I wrote this.
All right.
And so what I did is I created these 5 important steps. And I'm going to do
Folks, you got to listen up now. I mean, you know, when we tell you we bring you important stuff, we bring you important stuff.
This is important. This is important. May I use this?
Certainly
may.
May
I use this?
You
This
may,
is the chili
absolutely.
dog.
Yes.
This
yes.
is the chili dog right here. So step number 1 is positioning the dog. So you have to have good elbow room.
Right.
You have to be able to, maneuver if you're going to, and you got to position the dog sort of like in this 45-degree angle. Now,
Remember that, 45 degrees.
Don't forget, it's full of chili.
That's right.
And the chili's falling over on the rolls.
Yes,
So it's like everywhere.
And sometimes it might have cheese on it.
It might have cheese on it, and
Ketchup, mustard, and relish.
and hot sauce.
Hot sauce.
Texas Pete hot sauce. The second step is the grip.
Yeah.
You want the grip to be firm but not tight.
So you got to have touch.
You have touch, and it has to be firm but not tight, because if it's too tight, you're going to push out the sauce. The whole point of this exercise is to prevent sauce slippage. Because the sauce you want in you, not on your shirt.
Correct.
So the grip has to be firm but not tight. Step 3 is the lift. You have to lift level. You don't want to lift like
Don't
this.
tilt. There you go. Down here.
Right down
And
here.
you get out of there.
All over the place. So you want to lift level.
Yeah.
And then number 4, the step 4 is the entry. I like about a 60-degree angle entry.
Keep it, folks, listen up here.
About
now.
a 60-degree, because you don't want to bite with the flat part. You want to bite with a canine. And the 5th step is, in fact, the bite. And the bite has to be straight down, break that skin,
Full.
and that's what releases the juices.
Hello.
And that is the way to eat a Ben's
And then you
chili
start
bowl.
patting your feet,
Then you
twinkling your toes.
Then you start moving. Sort of like church.
Yeah.
You know,
that's right. You get happy.
You get happy.
Absolutely.
You get happy eating Ben's.
Okay, now, so you got that? If not, if you don't have it, somewhere not too far after this program is over, you can Google us at rocknewmanshow.com and get that particular tutorial. Go on down to Ben's one day, and then come on over to Busboys and Poets the next day, or go there for lunch and come here for dinner.
And
we serve all.
And these are free at Ben's Chili Bowl. My essay on how to eat a chili dog.
How to eat a chili bowl. You, at 11 o'clock today, you're leaving here. You take a little break, and you're going over to Ben's Chili Bowl. And actually, at the Chili Bowl today, you're doing a lecture. Tell us about that.
Well, I'm Ben's historian, literally
Yes.
Ben's historian. About 3 years ago, I had been working with Ben's, for 30, 40 years, but I've been working with Ben's for the last 15 years to help them appreciate that is not just a hot dog joint.
Yeah.
That is a cultural community center.
Yes.
That is an institution icon. That is a place to be, and a place that is not just the preservation of black history, but the celebration of black history. So what I was able to help the Ali family with was preserving their historic papers, documents, and photos.
Yeah.
So what we did is it took about 2 years. We gathered up all the historic papers, documents, and photos of Ben's. We then categorize them, put them at the George Washington University's Gelman Library at our Africana Research Center, where they will be preserved forever and ever and ever.
Wow.
They're digitized, and every student around the world, every scholar around the world can now examine Ben's history and learn from Ben's history. The important thing about Ben's history, it's a family history.
Yeah.
A family business that made it in the rough times.
Yeah.
First, they started off with little money.
Sure.
Then they experienced the riots of '68, which
Yes.
burnt half of U Street down.
Right.
Then they got hit with the crack cocaine epidemic.
Yes.
Then they got hit, if that's not even worse, they got hit with the subway for 5
I
years.
remember
Tore that
U
place
Street
up.
being torn up, man.
Tore it-
And going in there, and it was Virginia and one
That's it. That's
other
exactly it.
employee.
That's exactly it.
We actually had Virginia on for the 55th anniversary.
Right.
And what a sweetheart she was.
So that's a long way to simply say that I'm Ben's historian. I'm the curator of all their papers. And what I do is every Saturday morning, I'm at Ben's from 9 to 12, and I'm giving history lessons on Ben's, Shaw, the Black Broadway, Black DC history. Anybody who wants to come are welcome to come. You know, some professors have an open door policy.
Yeah.
I have an open table policy.
And folks, look, just to really make sure you understand what's going on here, Bernie does that lecture on the regular, And he's sitting in a seat that's designated with sort of his nameplate there, and it is the seat right next to. Is it the same seat or right next to? Right next to that seat is where a guy by the name of Barack Hussein Obama sat very, very shortly after he. It was like a day or so after he was elected president of the United States of America, where he went in and ate. And you know, that Obama going in there really helped take the place to another level. If I'm saying that properly, you know, I had walked around the 2008 election. I think U Street was the busiest that I've ever seen it in my adult life, and I've been going there. My aunt was the owner. She and her husband was the owner of Mosby's jewelry store just up the street from there. So I used to go there. The first movie I ever went to, I went right there. I saw Tarzan Comes to New York. So Obama coming in there just really helped propel it. And if anyone deserved that kind of propulsion, it was the Ali family and Ben's Chili Bowl.
And let's go back to your comment earlier when we started this off about my whiteness and whiteness of D.C. You know, what was really important, obviously Barack Obama got a 97% African-American vote, which was terrific. But in fact, Barack Obama got a huge white vote and a huge young person's white vote. And America has been changed ever since. Ben's Chili Bowl has been changed. U Street has been changed. America's been changed. You know, what's great about Ben's Chili Bowl, Rock, is that it's a microcosm of how America should be and can be. When you walk into Ben's, there's Asians, there's Hispanics, there's Jews, there's Gentiles, there's Christians, there's this, that. Everything is in Ben's. It's a microcosm of how we can be as an ideal country. Your diversity. We are one. And that's what Ben's really represents, just much more than just a hot dog joint.
You know, you're talking about diversity and we are one. And that brings me to two individuals. If I had a segment on this show that was called Y'all Need to Shut the Hell Up, the two candidates this week would be Dr. Ben Carson, who just recently said the emergence of Obamacare is the worst thing that's happened to this country since slavery. One. And I'll just deal with that for a second, which makes me think that maybe he forgot the lynchings. Maybe he forgot 3 key little black girls in Birmingham, Alabama. Maybe he forgot the Tulsa riots, and on and on and on. Maybe he forgot Jim Crow. So he would be one of the candidates. They would be tied for first for Shut the Hell Up. The second one is a guy by the name of Daniel Snyder, who is the owner of Washington's professional football team, who this week wrote a pablum-puking letter to the Washington fans trying to defend the name of a racist, genocidal term that can't be by any reasonable minds thought of anything other than a slur. He tries to defend that. I know for a long time, Bernie, you've studied history. You studied black history. You are an expert on all things Washington, D.C. I'd like to have you to weigh in on that.
Well, you know, the Washington Redskins, excuse me, I said the R word. I don't say the R word.
Me either. There you go.
Thank you. The Washington R word, the Washington Football Club, has been around for 81 years. And guess what? In that 81 years, they were the last football team to integrate. And it was Bobby Mitchell that they finally had to bring on because Bobby was so good. They were the last team to integrate. You know, they have never had a track record in this city of being a community team. They never have. But more importantly, to your point, the R word comes from the 1830s and 1870s when it started with President Andrew Jackson, who was going to clear the West of Native Americans in order to put the Iron Horse, our march to the West Coast, our march to California, our march to take over the entire West. And if it meant removing millions of Indians, if it meant killing the Choctaw, if it meant the Trail of Tears for the Cherokee. 18,000 Cherokees were removed from Georgia in the 1870s. Only 50% of them survived past the Mississippi River. Right. That's called Indian removal.
Yeah.
That's called, and then what happens?
It's called Indian removal, and it's genocide.
And it was genocide, what the Army was able to do, what the United States government did, was paid $10 per redskin.
Yeah.
You kill an Indian if he or
Folks,
she,
those of you that think that this term is innocuous, it's no big thing. Listen to this explanation, please.
If the native, and where did they put the railroad train to the West Coast? They put it in these areas that had rivers, and those were organized Indian towns. If the Indians didn't move, they were killed. Yeah. If they were killed, you bring back a scalp of a Native American, you get $10 per redskin.
Yeah, there's a couple of arteries that run through major sections of Maryland that bring you into Washington, D.C. Indian Head Highway. 1 mile from where I grew up, Old Indian Head Road. How do you think those roads and those passageways got their names? Because that's where the government came to pick up those scalps after the natives had been slaughtered. And you tell me that it's okay to use it? It's not, Dan. It's not. You're practicing racism. You're practicing bigotry. And when you practice racism and bigot, it makes you a racist and a bigot. We'll be back on the Rock Newman Show in just a few moments.
That's right.
My baby drives a Pohanka.
The weekend is here, and no matter what the weather's like outside, you'll find the deals inside here in the beautiful showroom of the all-new Pohanka Hyundai in Capitol Heights during their giant Markdown Madness sale.
Smart shoppers know that every new Hyundai in Pohanka comes with Hyundai Assurance and America's best 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. But why don't you tell them about the Markdown sale, Joe?
I'll be happy to, Kim. Folks, shop around on the web, and you'll see lease payments on a new 2013 Elantra GLS at $179 a month. Today at Pohanka Hyundai, $99 a month. That's right, a $99 payment on a brand new Elantra.
And $89 a month on a new 2013 Accent GLS Automatic. How do they do it, Joe?
It must be the volume, Kim. A brand new building, hundreds of new Hyundais, and Pohanka's low payment and easy credit programs are designed to get everybody driving. But you have to get here today. Rush to the giant Markdown Madness sale at exit 13 off the Capitol Beltway.
Pohanka Hyundai, king of the Beltway. All financing for a limited term on approved HMF credit.
My baby drives a Pohanka.
Hello, everybody. I'm Rock Newman from the Rock Newman Show. And I am absolutely flattered to have as one of my fine advertisers the DMV's greatest corporate citizen. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about the Pohanka Automotive Group. If you have any automotive needs whatsoever, if you want to sell your car, buy a car, trade in your car, have your car serviced, whatever you need, see my good friends at the Pohanka Automotive Group. You will be well taken care of, I promise. I'm Rock Newman. I might be there. Come on down and see our good friends at Pohanka Automotive Group.
And now, the Rock Newman Show.
Welcome back, folks. Again, today is Saturday, October the 12th, 2013. We're broadcasting live from the Langston Hughes Room at Busboys and Poets. My guest in this hour is Dr. Bernard Demczuk. Coming up in our second hour, Carol Fennelly, an absolute legend, recently feted by a top honor from the Barack Obama administration at the White House for the incredible body of work that has been hers for nearly 40 years. And also in the 11 o'clock hour, Rhozier Roach Brown, producer and host at WPFW, the great station here in Washington, D.C. He's the founder and director of the Inner Voices, a nationally traveling prison theater troupe, and a man not with 9 lives, but 29 lives. We'll talk to Roach in the 11 o'clock hour. Today, Bernard, I have said a couple of times it's October the 12th, and I know you as a historian are fond of having historical facts. And I think you have a few for us today as to what the relevance and sort of some of the things that happened on October the 12th in years past.
Absolutely, I will do that. But before I do that, let me just say I'm so excited about your two guests following me. Carol Fennelly. You know, I think I met Carol Fennelly sleeping in a cardboard box in front of the district building.
I was going to say.
All night long with Mitch Snyder and her and a bunch of protesting homelessness.
What rich history.
What history. And what she's doing today is keeping our young boys and girls, our young men and women in sight who are in prison, because if you put them out of sight, you put them out of mind. She's
connecting families. When you talk about making the world a better place to live, Carol Fennelly, I mean, we just applaud her.
And speaking of Roach Brown, I met Roach in prison. So Roach and I,
and at that time he wasn't one of the prison guards with you.
No, he was not a prison guard. He was actually running Outer Voices at Lorton, and it was a fabulous program for imprisoned men to get a voice as to who they really are.
Yeah,
it's really important. So great show coming up here. Today is October 12th, and if I may, I do every morning, and I want your listeners to think about this. Sure. Every morning when I get up, I Google Today in Black History. Munira Chronicles. Munira is spelled M-U-N-R-I-A-H. Munira Chronicles. Today in Black History, then put in the date. Put in October 12th. And guess what comes up? Today in Black History for the last 400 years.
Wow.
Every single morning. So this morning, I Googled up Today in Black History. And today on October 12th, guess what? Xavier University was founded in 1925 on October 12th. America's only African-American Catholic college becomes a reality when the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences is established in New Orleans.
Xavier University in New Orleans.
Guess who was born today in 1932?
A big participant, fan, and guest and host and co-host at one time with me here on the Rock Newman Show. His name is
Richard Claxton Gregory.
The third. Better known as Dick Gregory.
Now, where did he get his name Claxton?
I have
That's
no
his
clue.
Middle name.
Yeah, Richard Claxton Gregory.
I'm going to start calling him Clax.
Yeah. When there were years, 30 years ago, when I was introduced to him, I used to like to say that. I like the ring of that. Richard Claxton Gregory.
You know, this guy is truly a pioneer, not only in civil rights, but if it weren't for him and Richard Pryor, we would not have black comedy today. Yeah. These guys set the stage.
Dick Gregory, the first person to ever perform at the Playboy Mansion in Chicago, broke the mold for many other artists and comedians to follow.
Samuel Moore is born today in Miami, Florida in 1935. So who is Samuel Moore? He's the Sam of Sam and Dave.
I was going to say, you talking about the Sam of Sam and Dave?
Sam and Dave, hold on,
I'm coming.
Soul Man,
That's right.
I thank you. That's Sam. That's today. Happy birthday, Samuel. Listen to this. In 1989, this is amazing. Herschel Walker is traded from the Cowboys to the Vikings for 12 players.
For 12 players, right. That was absolutely phenomenal. You know, you brought up Sam Moore. And I heard a riveting interview. I think it was NPR, something like that, with Sam Moore, and he was talking about being close to Whitney Houston and Cissy Houston. And he was talking about the things that he saw, and he had been through his trials and tribulations with drugs and sort of seemed to have come out on the other side healthy. And what a compassionate man he was as he talked about Whitney's demise. Look, we mentioned the name earlier. We both talked about it briefly. And in Washington, D.C. culture and history, to this day still, I want to think about that for a second. So say the largest funeral,
Correct.
from a person in this city.
I know you're going to say.
Is
10,000.
as a guy by the name of Petey Green. Now, just a couple of years ago, another one of his friends, and then just one of our friends, a true icon, I feel like busting loose, Chuck Brown, was laid to rest. There were a lot of folks in the convention center, don't know how many, but right now we're focusing on Petey Green and sort of the impact that this guy had. Petey Green, folks, in case you need a reminder, he was the one portrayed in the movie by Don Cheadle. They talked about a relationship between Petey Green and Dewey Hughes.
Talk to Me.
Talk to Me was the name of it, and they got that from Petey's voice at WOL radio back in the 60s, during the time even when there was the riot. But Petey Green would say, talk to me, tell it to the young, tell it to the old. Now I've forgotten. I don't want no line, I don't want no signifying.
That's right.
So Petey Green, talk to me.
Well, let me say something about those two gentlemen and also the last event here on October 12th. I was in the convention center with Chuck Brown's homegoing, and I was probably 10,000 people. Petey Green's estimated funeral was 10,000 people. It doesn't matter whether it was 10 or 9 or 8. It doesn't matter.
Oh, 13,
These are
right.
giants.
Yes.
These are giants of African American culture.
Yeah.
Now we celebrate them as African American history. This is my point.
Yeah.
My point that culture precedes history.
Right.
And also today on October 12th, speaking of giants, I don't mean that literally, but it works. In 1999, Wilt Chamberlain joins the ancestors today.
Yeah.
Now, when we say an African American scholarship, we don't say the person dies.
Yeah.
We say he joins the ancestors,
or
she joins she goes back, or he goes back to the African village and lives in the spirit community with the ancestors. Because, and this is the important part, if we don't listen to the ancestors, we don't learn.
Right.
And the ancestors are alive and well, and they intervene in the lives of the living if the living are willing to listen and learn.
Wow.
So Wilt Chamberlain, passes away. He joins the ancestors today. He succumbs to a heart attack at the age of 63 in his home in L.A. He is the only player in NBA history to score 100 points, and he is in my top 5 all-time NBA players. Wilt Chamberlain, God bless him.
No question about it. He was so dominant.
And he was fast, and he was quick.
Extraordinarily dominant. So you met Petey in Lorton.
I met Petey in Lorton only very, very briefly, and then Petey got himself out. You know how he got himself out.
Absolutely. And folks, those of you who don't know how Petey Green got himself out, this is a story.
It's a great story.
This is a story in intellect. I'm not saying education. This is a story in intellect. You ought to look at that movie, Talk to Me, and find out, because it's a fascinating story. But Petey had a grip. Petey, for a good period of time, personified an emerging black man, an emerging blackness in Washington, D.C. that wasn't going to be subservient anymore to the federal bureaucracy, to the folks from the South who ultimately controlled most of what went on here. Petey Green was one to say, no, we're not going to do it that way. We're going to do it our way.
And Petey Green could talk, and he could rap, and he could think on the spot, and that's where you're going with this. And let's go back to culture. The African griot The African storyteller in the village was the intellectual of the village, because he, and sometimes he could actually memorize the entire history of his people, of his race, of his tribe, of his nation. He could do that over and over, and that was his job, was the griot. In the Atlantic slave trade, the griots are brought over. They are now enslaved. They emerge as the preachers in the slave community, in the slave quarters. That's where we get the great orators of black preachers, Jesse Jacksons, Barack Obamas, Petey Greens. That's where they come from. They come from that long line of cultural history going back to West Africa. Right. It's all part of the same thing.
If someone wrote your story, Dr. Demczuk, it would not be unfair to call you a Renaissance man. When I bring that up, I had the good fortune, summer past, to come to a place over on the eastern shore of Maryland that you've affectionately named Giverny West.
Giverny West.
Giverny West. Tell us about Giverny West.
Well, when I was a young man trying to pass French language courses in high school, which I did not do very well, and the professor, the teacher of French, showed us these pictures of a guy by the name of Claude Monet.
Yeah.
I looked at these pictures and I was like blown away. I said, my goodness, what is this all about? Who is this person? I began to study more or read more about Claude Monet and about Impressionist paintings. I come to find out later on that Claude Monet moves to this tiny little village in Normandy, France, called Giverny. Claude Monet lives, he's on a train from Le Havre, France, on the coast, to Paris. One day he gets off the train just to stretch a little bit, and he looks up at the sky and he goes, "It's the most perfect air I have ever seen." Now, here's this guy. Now, this is Monet. He is the father of Impressionism.
Yes.
He was able to see air.
Yeah.
You and I, we walk out on the street, well, it's a little smoggy.
Yeah, right. Right.
This guy can see air.
Yeah.
So he goes, "This is the most perfect air I've ever seen. I want to live here, and this is where I want to paint."
Yeah.
So what he did is he created his entire history of all of his paintings in that little town called Giverny. And when I fell in love with his paintings, and then I went there and I visited his home, his gardens, and I've been studying him for 30 years. I decided to buy a little piece of land on the water on the eastern shore, and I named it Giverny West. And I have been developing my gardens there in his honor, and it's called Giverny West. And I was so honored that you were there last year.
And let me say something: walking out on that bridge, on that unique replica, huh?
It's the only exact replica of Monet's Japanese footbridge in the world. And you're going to say, how do you know it's the only one in the world?
Well, I'm going to believe it because you said it anyhow. Bernie, in the time we have remaining here, we've got 3 or 4 minutes. I want to talk about, you mentioned earlier about Washington, D.C. having now this cultural diversity, and we're sort of an ice cream swirl, and we're headed towards being a mocha city, if you will. Gentrification has played a very big part in that. All cities have a challenge of expanding their revenue base at the same time trying to maintain their ethnic identities, their cultural identities. Speak to us about the challenge of Washington, D.C., and folks feeling comfortable around each other, newcomers coming in here, the older folks feeling somewhat displaced. Let's talk about that for a moment.
There's a lot of newcomers coming into the cities constantly over the last 200-300 years. Marion Barry was a newcomer.
Yeah.
Johnny Wilson was a newcomer.
Right.
Walter Fauntleroy, Dave Clark. I mean, a lot of people are newcomers, and a lot of the newcomers bring good ideas and great energy.
Sure.
And I think that's what's happening now. I think the plethora of restaurants and art galleries and bookstores and stuff, and planting of flowers and cleaning up parks, that's a good thing. We are fortunate in this city that we have a sensitive and compassionate leaders in City Hall. Mayor Vincent Gray, Marion Barry, city council members who do care and who try to mitigate the negative impact of gentrification. So you just can't run somebody out of the city.
Right.
Now, I live in a historically black community of Shaw, and on my street, I must say, When I first moved on my street 30 some years ago, 30 more years ago, I was the only white person on the street. However, our street is now about 60% black, 40% white. On our street, nobody on our street, no African-American family in our street was in any way displaced or run out because of gentrification, quote unquote.
Right.
What in fact happened was the opposite. These are African-American families who bought their homes in the 19-teens and 20s for $12,000 and sold them for $900,000. Right. Bought a house in upper Northwest or in Montgomery County. Sure. Gentrification worked into their advantage. Mm-hmm. That is not to say that gentrification does not have its downside. It's important for us, and this is getting to your point, it's important for us to understand that as this demographic shift occurs, it's really important for us to not only preserve our African American history here, but to celebrate it. So when you put up murals and when you create Ben's Chili Bowls and you put up museums and you put, when the churches go and when the institutions go, when the people go, the churches and institutions go, and we lose our history and culture. We can't let that happen.
Bernie, we've got 1 minute left. I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Give me a great day. What's a great day in the life of Bernard Demczuk? What do you do all day? You get up in the morning. When you get up in the morning, and take me all the way through the day.
Well, what I do is I start out with you in the morning. Then I go to Ben's Chili Bowl, and I do history and lectures at Ben's Chili Bowl. And then around 1 o'clock, I pick up my beautiful son. He's 15 years old, 6'4", 15 years old. He's got a size 15 foot.
Wow, he's still going to grow some more.
And he's going to grow. And either go to baseball games or basketball games with him. And then that night, we drive out to the country house. And that next morning, we fix a meal together because he's a good cook, and I'm a good cook. And then that morning, we get up on Sunday morning and we go bass fishing. That's a perfect day in my life.
I want to keep you coming back. Thank you so much, Bernie. Folks, that's our first hour. Coming up next, the legendary Carol Fennelly and the iconic Rhozier Roach Brown on the Rock Newman Show at Busboys and Poets, 14th and V Street. You still got time to come down for some great conversation and great, great food. See you in a few moments.
This is Leprechaun Tim Pohanka from Pohanka Nissan and Pohanka Hyundai. It's hard to be down on your luck when you're Virginia's first choice for new Nissan and Hyundais, but I need to sell 60 cars this week. Right now, I'll pay you big bucks for your good luck. Bring down any good luck charm you've got, and based on the sale price of the car you choose, I'll give you up to $4,777 off any nicer, newer car this week. Today, your lucky penny is worth plenty, up to $4,777 off any nicer, newer car you want. Stop moping and hoping you'll get approved. With my For the People credit approval process, the banks are looking to get lucky and lend to you, even if you've been turned down before. Bring me any good luck charm and I'll give you up to $4,777 off any nicer, newer car today. Hurry, once I get rid of 60 cars, the luck runs out. All offers require bank approval, so call us at 1-800-POHANKA, visit Pohanka Nissan and Pohanka Hyundai on Route 1 in Fredericksburg, or better yet, log on to timpohankaforthepeople.com. And when we make a deal, I promise it'll be your lucky day. I'm Tim Pohanka, and I'm a leprechaun for the people.
Hello to all my friends in the DMV. I am Rock Newman from the Rock Newman Show. I want to tell you about the MGM Grand National Harbor, the most exciting project to come to the District, Maryland, or Virginia in quite some time. You're going to have great fun. Come on down, support this project with all you have. It is going to be wonderful for the area. We're going to increase our tax base. We're going to get funding for the police department, for ambulance, for fire, for education. It is really a project that is going to benefit our area. Folks, we want to support in a very strong DMV kind of way this great project from the MGM Grand National Harbor.
And now, the Rock Newman Show.
Folks, welcome back to the Rock Newman Show. Today, Saturday, October the 12th, 2013. You know, I often say, oh, what a spectacular day it is in Washington, D.C. with blue skies and sun shining. And today, it's raining and a little chilly, but it's still a beautiful day. And I want to ask my cameraman to please make sure that he takes the camera and puts it on Carol Fennelly as I talk about this young lady for just a moment. I have known Carol Fennelly for in excess, I thought about it. I knew her when I was at Howard University. I was at Howard University until 74. So really, I've known her about 40 years. And I've known her every step of the way to be one of the most committed public servants that I've ever met in my life. She is the kind of person that makes you challenge yourself, that makes you challenge your own sense of right and wrong and decency. Someone that is so committed. In the last hour, Dr. Bernard Demczuk reminisced about when he thought he first met Carol, and it was when she and her mate at the time, Mitch Snyder, a true Washington, D.C. legend himself, were protesting something for, the disadvantaged, the homeless. Carol Fennelly and Mitch Snyder perhaps brought the plight of homeless individuals and the subject of homelessness in this land, this vast land of plenty. They perhaps singularly, as much as anyone else on this planet, helped shine a spotlight on those unfortunate souls who spend their nights, cold nights, blistering summer days on crates, on hands and knees, begging for food and the rest. Those, through whatever circumstances they have. And I've heard some idiotic comments like, oh, if they're homeless, they must want to be homeless. Well, I met Carol in the midst of her work with the CCNV, the Community for Creative Nonviolence. And just when you think about that first word, community, she was a proponent and her mate was a proponent about giving an opportunity and giving a chance for those who really oftentimes had given up on life and those who were in a position of help had given up on them. So they had nowhere to turn, they had nowhere to go, except they had friends. And the friends were named Mitch Snyder and Carol Fennelly. Carol Fennelly, My God, thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
us. And I'm telling you, I am humbled and I am honored to be sitting with you. You are an angel.
Well, that's very nice. It's embarrassing. Thank you.
Okay. Well, what is there something in Scripture I've heard Baptist preachers say? If I had 10,000 tongues, I couldn't thank you enough. Well, in this
bless you.
particular
Thank you.
case, if I had 10,000 tongues and 10,000 microphones, I could not thank you enough for truly the unselfish work that you've done. I'll tell you what I'd like to do, because I'm just fascinated, and I think my listening audience would be fascinated also. I want to kind of go back with you. There's a lot of work we want to talk about that you've done and that you continue to do today. Carol is doing, she is the creator right now, executive director of the Hope House. And Hope House, to my understanding, is something that helps connect children of those incarcerated with those who are incarcerated, as opposed to allowing a system that takes those who have committed crimes or whatever they've done, where they've gone off to prison and sort of shut away from the world. Carol's initiative and commitment to continuing to make the world a better place has created a program where she is a conduit, and her program is a conduit towards bridging the gap, to allowing those who have been incarcerated to still maintain a sense of family with their children, with their offspring, with their spouses. So much to talk about in terms of the work you've done. Right now, I want to spend a little bit of time finding out who this angel is. Where was this angel born? Where did this angel grow up?
Well, I was born in California, and I grew up a typical middle-class kid. And
What part of California?
Southern California.
Okay.
Partly in Los Angeles, part in San Diego.
Okay.
And then the 60s hit. I graduated from high school in a year that we will not say. But I kind of became a hippie and floated around and hitchhiked around California and different places, and met my first husband, and eventually got married, had a couple kids. That marriage didn't work out, and I came to Washington with my children and joined the Community for Creative Nonviolence.
Okay, let's go back for a second. You graduated from high school and became a hippie.
Yeah.
What was your favorite song?
Are you going to San Francisco? Because I did.
Yeah. And so you came to Washington, D.C. Was that then early 70s?
It was mid-'70s.
Okay.
Mid-'70s I came and joined CCNB and lived in a homeless shelter for 17 years with my kids.
Now, when you first did that, was that something that you had been thinking about doing to try to make an impact? What were the circumstances that got you there?
I come out of a faith tradition, and it was Matthew 25 that says, "Feed the hungry, house the homeless, clothe the naked, visit the sick and the prisoner," and it says to do that unequivocally. There's no sort of wiggle room in that commandment. Do that or go to hell, basically, what that passage says. And I started taking that real seriously and moved into the shelter and worked in the soup kitchen in the shelter. And
so you went, now did you move there because and folks, I mentioned this name again because he's such a Washington D.C. icon also. And his name is Mitch Snyder. Did you and Mitch hook up and then you moved there? You met him there? What were those circumstances?
I met him at CCNB.
Now, so...
And it was love at first sight. Actually, I saw his picture, and I fell in love with his picture. I was like, whoa, who's that?
Yeah. What a charismatic guy he was.
Yeah. I have that very picture on my wall.
Still?
Actually,
Wow.
Yeah.
So, but here's what I'm asking. So, did you go to the shelter? Were you at the time without a home? Or?
Oh, no. It was a choice to move in there with my kids and begin to change the world.
And where was the shelter then?
14th and N Street, right across from Luther Place Church. We had a Zacchaeus house, and we had a number of houses and medical clinic and various programs there on N Street. Mitch was up at Euclid Street at the time. We were in different parts of the community.
Okay. And so do you remember the first time you ever met Mitch?
I do.
Tell us about that.
it was on a picket line. Where else? We were picketing the redevelopment land agency, trying to get them to turn a building over, and I met him there. And I was kind of speechless. And then when we won, got the building, we were at a party celebrating,
Right.
and he went out on the front steps, and I had to go out and meet this guy, right?
Yeah.
And so he was smoking a cigarette because he was, heavy
Yes.
smoker
Sure.
back then, Pall
Sure.
Malls.
Yes. Yeah.
And I didn't smoke, but I said, "Oh man, can I have a cigarette?" And then I smoked the cigarette, choking all the way through it.
Yeah.
But I was speechless. I just couldn't even. I couldn't speak. And I'm rarely without words. So it was pretty much love at first sight.
And speechless, I mean, because, one, you kind of had a crush on this guy, and truly, he wasn't like a large man in stature.
No.
But he was a giant, and I mean a force, an absolute charismatic force of nature.
Yeah, he was. He was really a force of nature, and taught me everything I know. I mean, at CCNV, I thought this was my life mission,
Yeah.
and that when I left there in '94, I thought, well, this is it. I've changed the world. Now I'm going to go retire someplace on the beach.
Yeah.
But really, I was just getting ready to do what I do now. I think
Right.
and this really the work I do now is really, pretty life-changing.
Okay, folks, you've heard both of us mention the name Mitch Snyder more than once already in this interview, and I need to spend a little more time here, because oftentimes, and certainly, you have a body of work singularly that stands the test of time in terms of being something that, if anybody gave any fair assessment to it, you've sort of met that scripture, in terms of housing the homeless and feeding the hungry and so on. But when folks think of Carol Fennelly, they certainly think of that incredible connection and that teamwork with Mitch Snyder. There is a shelter here in Washington, D.C. now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
It is still the largest shelter.
Yes.
This largest homeless shelter in the city.
It used to be the largest in the United States.
Uh-huh.
I think they've downsized on the population there, but we used to have 1,400 residents there.
Okay. Now, that shelter came into existence during a time of the Reagan administration, and no one has ever accused the Reagan administration. I can't get beyond giving my personal opinion here. I can't get beyond the airport here being named Reagan. I never call it Reagan Airport.
Does anybody in Washington?
It's national. It's national airport.
Yeah.
No one has ever accused the Reagan administration of being kind to the disadvantaged,
Right.
to the needy, or to the homeless. And you and Mitch Snyder during the Reagan administration were truly advocates and fighters for the homeless and the disadvantaged. So now what exists as what at one point was the largest homeless shelter in the country was owned by the federal government.
Right.
And you all wanted to have that facility to serve the underserved homeless population. And the administration's position was, hell no. And to some extent, and I'm paraphrasing, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but your all's position was, hell no, we ain't going to go until you give us what we want, what we want. Mitch went on a hunger strike.
Well, there was a little bit of stuff in between.
Please tell me.
Okay. So we discovered this building that was up for auction,
Right.
and we pretended no one knew who Mitch was at the time, so we were able to do this kind of quietly. We went in pretending to be potential buyers,
Yeah.
Mitch and I and one other person, and got a tour of the building, and looked like just what we needed.
Uh-huh.
So we went back, and there was, at the time, legislation that took federal properties that were unused and made them available as shelter space, like former military bases. There's a lot of military bases closing down.
Right.
And but no building had ever, you could A, never find anybody in the office that had the list,
Yeah.
and B, no building had ever been made available under that provision. So we identified this federal building and went after it as a vacant building that could be used to house homeless people. And so we didn't take a lot to get the building. We got it back because there was that provision. They were sort of anxious to do something. We had to struggle a little bit, but eventually we got the building, and it was on Christmas Eve, I can't remember the year. It would have been 82, 83, I think, when we actually got the building. And but we had to do some stuff to move in. So Oliver Carr gave us one of his hotels, and we moved homeless people into a hotel for a couple of weeks while we got the building ready. We moved in, and the idea was that we were just going to stay for the winter. Big mistake. Because, just because it was spring didn't mean that people were any less homeless.
Sure.
So then that's when the struggle started, to get the building forever and then to get it renovated. Because it was pretty much a wreck. It was the old UDC building.
Right.
Or the Federal City College.
Federal City College,
Yeah, Federal City
correct.
College, yeah, Teachers College. Kind of. So we just stayed there and occupied it, and there were threats to get us out. They tried everything to get us out, and they couldn't. And then the hunger strike started. So the first one was in '84, and it ended just before the election in '84. And Ronald Reagan promised to renovate the building. Well, he didn't really want to renovate it. He wanted to, slap some stuff on it, and that wasn't good enough. We wanted a model shelter.
Sure.
And so then there was another hunger strike. And in between then, there was a movie made, 2 movies made actually, about the struggle for the shelter. And ultimately, we got $4 million to renovate it, and it stands today as a monument to that struggle.
Yeah, and you've actually explained that in a very sort of matter-of-fact kind of way. There was a lot of drama around all of that, and you guys stuck to your guns, and you won. You beat that administration at their own game in that particular time. We give you big kudos for that here on the Rock Newman Show. Folks, we're going to continue in just a few moments with Carol Fennelly, creator of Hope House, and we're going to tell you all about Hope House and the hope that it gives to those incarcerated families who absolutely benefit from the tireless efforts of Carol Fennelly in a moment on the Rock Newman Show.
My baby drives a pole handcuff.
The weekend is here, and no matter what the weather's like outside, you'll find the deals inside here in the beautiful showroom of the all-new Pohanka Hyundai in Capitol Heights during their giant Markdown Madness sale.
Smart shoppers know that every new Hyundai in Pohanka comes with Hyundai Assurance and America's best 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. But why don't you tell them about the markdown sale, Joe?
I'll be happy to, Kim. Folks, shop around on the web, and you'll see lease payments on a new 2013 Elantra GLS at $179 a month. Today at Pohanka Hyundai, $99 a month. That's right, a $99 payment on a brand new Elantra.
And $89 a month on a new 2013 Accent GLS Automatic. How do they do it, Joe?
It must be the volume, Kim. A brand new building, hundreds of new Hyundais, and Pohanka's low payment and easy credit programs are designed to get everybody driving. But you have to get here today. Rush to the giant Markdown Madness sale at exit 13 off the Capitol Beltway.
Pohanka Hyundai, king of the Beltway. All financing for a limited term on approved HMF credit.
My baby drives a pole handcuff.
Hello, everybody. I'm Rock Newman from the Rock Newman Show, and I am absolutely flattered to have as one of my fine advertisers the DMV's greatest corporate citizen. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about the Pohanka Automotive Group. If you have any automotive needs whatsoever, if you want to sell your car, buy a car, trade in your car, have your car serviced, whatever you need, see my good friends at the Pohanka Automotive Group. You will be well taken care of, I promise. I'm Rock Newman. I might be there. Come on down and see our good friends at Pohanka Automotive Group.
And now, the Rock Newman Show.
Folks, welcome back to the Rock Newman Show. We are broadcasting live from the Langston Hughes Room today, October the 12th, 2013. Our guest this hour, Carol Fennelly, coming up in the 11 o'clock hour, the legendary Rhozier Roach Brown, the man not with 9 lives, but 29 lives, a DC icon. He will be sharing all of his history, knowledge, information about all things Washington, D.C., and the incredible life story of a living legend, Roach Brown, in the 11 o'clock hour. Part of that story about Roach Brown, and of course, you knew Dr. Bernard Demczuk, you know Roach Brown. You three are D.C. legends, each of you with a healthy degree of admiration and respect for the other. But part of what we'll talk to Roach Brown about was his time at Lawton Prison. Mm-hmm. And I looked up a little information. I didn't get it all. Mm-hmm. But let's talk about Carol Fennelly, this sweet, beautiful lady, so committed as a public servant. Let's talk about your arrest record.
Oh, well.
How many times have you been arrested?
I don't really know, but it's across 5 states, I can tell you that.
Yeah, and so
that they let me into the prisons to do this work is amazing.
Yeah, so are we talking 22, 42, 75?
Probably between 40 and 50, yeah.
40 and 50 times having been arrested.
Yeah, then there's the help I gave to others. I mean, I used to take these tours through the White House and help people get arrested.
Yeah.
And, so every time.
That's a funny comment.
I know.
I used to help people get arrested.
Well, tell them which line to cross and all that kind of thing, where they could go to if they wanted to kneel and pray and get arrested on that spot.
Yeah.
So it got so bad that the White House knew me, and every time I entered the White House, they closed the White House door line until I left, because they knew someone was going to get arrested that day.
Right.
And so it was, I had a lot.
Messing around with you folks.
I know.
I got arrested.
You sure did.
At the White House. And, that was in the 70s at some point. I think it was 77 or so. Well, later I got an invitation to go there with another icon. His name is Tony Brown. He was the architect of what at the time was Black History Day. I remember it. September the 29th, 1980 was Black History Day. And he got feted at the White House, at a White House dinner. And I was invited. And having gotten arrested on White House grounds, when I went there, I had this very strange occurrence. And that was wherever I went, there was what I'm assuming was a Secret Service agent that stayed very close to me. And at one point, they never announced that I was being followed, but I was clearly being followed. And at one point, he made a display of this big gun that he had on his hands. So now, we want to talk about the award. You just recently received a Champion of Change award.
Yes.
I want to talk about that. Obviously, you got the award at the White House, so you had to be in the White House.
Yep, I did, and I've been back several times since then.
Yeah.
And I go into these meetings, about policy and program, and I'm the only one in the room with a purple badge. Everybody else has a green badge, and I have to I stay at the gate waiting for like 20, 30 minutes for someone to come and get me. And I'm going, why are all these people going in? They're going to the same meeting I'm going to.
Yeah.
And I get in the room, and everybody has a green badge but me. So finally, I just said, what is up with this?
Yeah.
Well, it's because of all my arrests at the White House. So I have to be escorted everywhere, to the bathroom, to lunch. The cool thing was, the last meeting I was in, supposed to go down to the cafeteria to get lunch, and I couldn't go, and so the White House bought me lunch, so I got a free lunch out of it.
So talk to us about, you received this award, which others, their prominent names have received, a Champion of Change to be honored by the White House. Tell us about that award, what it was for, and what kind of, what they were giving you the award for.
Well, the White House has a new initiative to support children of prisoners. And they honored 12 of us in June with its Champion of Change Award and brought us all in from all over the country to get the award. And I got to take 13 Hope House kids and moms with me as well. It was great.
Let's drop back digress for a moment. You mentioned earlier about a movie being made.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly remember Charlie Sheen,
Martin Sheen.
Martin Sheen playing the role of Mitch Snyder.
Mm-hmm.
What was the name of that movie?
It was Samaritan, the Mitch Snyder story. It was a CBS film. There's a second film called Promises to Keep, which was done by a local filmmaker here in D.C.
Yeah.
It was nominated for an Academy Award. It's a documentary that is excellent. Really, really good film, too.
Yeah. Tell us about what went into, you sort of thought you had done your work and kind of left this business of commitment and round-the-clock just obligation in 1994.
Yeah. Moved to the beach.
Yeah. Where?
On the Delaware Bay in a place called Broadkill Beach.
Okay. So you thought you were going to be watching, you're in Delaware, so that means you'd be on the Atlantic and you'd be watching the sunrise.
Yeah.
That's what you thought you were going to be doing.
That's what I thought.
And then what happened?
Well, that same still small voice that brought me to Washington, in the 70s, came back and haunted me.
Mm-hmm.
And
Was there a point when you said, God, would you leave me alone?
I sure did. I sure enough did.
Why are you messing with me?
I got this beach house, God.
Haven't I done my work?
I've done my share. I'm done. And at the time, I was actually working for Sojourners Magazine and for WAMU Radio doing political commentary.
Mm-hmm.
And I started writing about Lorton closing in 1998, or 1997 actually. And it was just a very compelling story. And I was interviewing families. I mean, what happened? Lorton closed, and D.C. inmates were taken into federal custody and shipped to prisons all over the country. Right. And it separated families. And I started interviewing family members who were impacted by that. And their stories were just tragic and really heartbreaking. And so one day I just kind of sat down and I said, we've got to do something. I just can't. I'm really not a writer. I'm an activist. Yeah. And so I started thinking about the ways that we communicate with one another, through letters, through audio cassette tapes, videos, things like that, none of which are, except for the letter writing, available in prisons.
Right.
And so I saw this video teleconference, and I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. We should do that. So I did some research, and one of my listeners, called about a piece I had done, and he turned out to be a computer programmer. So he designed this ultra-secure program that I took to the warden at the Youngstown facility where D.C. inmates were being housed in 1998, and said, I want to do this program that would allow children to come to our office and have an hour teleconference with their dads in Youngstown. Yeah. And he bought it, And then I started looking around for other programs for fathers in prison. Right. And there were none. There were programs for mothers, but there were none for fathers. Mm-hmm. So I looked at the programs for mothers, and I found this cool summer camp program that mothers in a prison in New York got to do. Right. And I thought, well, if mothers can do this, why can't fathers? Yeah. And then I saw this reading program where the mothers got to record books for their children, and I thought, if mothers can do this, why can't fathers?
Carol, let me stop you for a moment here. Question. So you had these programs, and rightfully so, where mothers maintained sort of that maternal relationship with their offspring. But at the time, and we're talking now, what would have been coming into the year getting close to 2000.
1998, yeah.
98, where there was not, that program did not exist for men. Right. You have any kind of stats in terms of, prison population? It's just overwhelmingly more men than it is women in prison.
Right. 7% of the prison population are women, and yet in sheer numbers there are more programs for mothers in prison than there are for fathers. I just think, when a mother goes to prison, she's a mother in prison. Yeah. When a father goes to prison, he's just a convict. Yeah. I mean, men in prison get written out of our community dialogue, our political dialogue. They don't count anymore. It's particularly African-American men. Yeah. They don't count anymore in our communities and as fathers. Yeah. So what we do at Hope House is try and elevate them and lift them up as the fathers that they should be playing in the lives of their children. I mean, mentoring programs are great, but in a true and perfect world, I didn't have a mentor. Yeah. I had my parents. Yeah. And we wouldn't have mentors. Parents would mentor their own children. So what we try and do is create a situation where fathers can mentor their own children.
Right.
Through, we do a summer camp program in 3 facilities, including Maryland's Supermax, North Branch Correctional Institution. We take children behind bars.
Where is that?
It's in Cumberland, Maryland.
Yeah.
There's a lot of D.C. guys there, though.
Sure.
Hundreds of D.C. inmates who were arrested in Maryland, but they lived in D.C. and their families are in D.C.
Right.
So we go behind bars 5 hours a day for 5 days, and the kids do art and crafts and music with their dads.
Yeah.
And hang out with their dads, build relationships with their dads. And we do it in a federal prison, also in Cumberland, and in another facility down in North Carolina. And we've had children who meet their dads for the first time in their lives at summer camp. Powerful, powerful experience for these kids and dads. Life-changing for the fathers. And our dads rarely go back to prison. Our kids rarely get into trouble because they have that relationship. Every kid needs to know their parents, And
Folks, it is not my responsibility. It's not in sort of the job title here or anything to appeal to you to give support to anybody. But when you hear this story being told, Hope House is a program. It was founded and developed, as I've said numerous times in this hour, by a committed angel to making the world a little better place to live. When you hear stories like this, I would just appeal to your better self, your better sense, to the extent that you have any opportunity to be able to support with either your finances, your being able to volunteer, whatever it might be, Hope House. Look that up. Look up the incredible work they're doing and give this program some support, because when I hear Carol talk about creating a vehicle that allows a person in prison a certain sense of still having their dignity and the ability to be able to be a parent to their child, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that is something that is more than likely overwhelmingly healthy for both of them. There are not enough of these programs, and the ones that do exist certainly need your support. I really stopped you because, I just as you were telling the story, and Carol, you do it in such a gentle Mother Teresa kind of way, but it's a lot of work. It's a lot of heavy lifting to make that happen. Now, at Hope House, do you still have the programs where the children come and are able to communicate with the prison population, with their fathers in prison through video conferencing? We do. We do that out of North Carolina, where there are 1,400 DC inmates in one facility. So it's easier there to do that because all the kids are local. Tell us how that works. So right now you've got a mother sitting over in Northeast Washington D.C. She's got 2 children there. The father is in prison and is somewhere where you all have this arrangement. Tell me how that works. Well, the father has to qualify for the program. The father has to sign up and take the initiative, and he has to have clear conduct for a year and take a parenting program. That's the prison's criteria. Sure. And then we have a family outreach coordinator, and she contacts the mother. She's also a Hope House mom whose child was in our first summer camp. Just want to say that. And she picks the kids up after school. She brings them to our office, and they get an hour with their dad. It's pretty cool. Wow. It's really simple. We do it 4 days a week. And we just are in conversation now. Our counterpart in the city that worked with the women, Our Place, just closed its doors, tragically. Yeah. So we're feeling a lot of pressure about that right now and trying to serve women. That's not our mission, but... Close this place, lack of funding, or...? I'm not clear. To tell you the truth, I'm not really clear. Right. But most, like 80% of the women in one particular facility in West Virginia are from D.C. Yeah. So serving a large portion of that population is going to be easy. Because we already go there for our reading program. We're talking about adding video teleconferencing out of that facility as well, looking for money to hire somebody for Hope House to run that women's section. We don't get government money. We actually,
for the last couple of years, have gotten a grant from the DC Arts Commission, but that's the only government funds we get. I mean, so these are not your tax dollars being wasted on
And so
these bums in prison.
most of your funding comes from what kind of sources?
Foundations and small donations. We do have our annual fundraiser coming up. This is my pitch.
Yes, yes, we certainly want to talk about that.
Yeah, every year at summer camp. Is that music signing us off?
Yeah, but come on.
November 20th. I'll talk about it when we come back.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We will do that. And I also want to talk about when we come back. I want you to walk me through you taking the kids to the prisons and how that all works.
Yeah.
Such an important program. Folks, we'll be right back with Carol Fennelly to wrap up the 10 o'clock hour here at Busboys and Poets. And then at 11 o'clock, the legendary Rhozier Roach Brown will be our guest for the entire 11 o'clock hour here on the Rock Newman Show. See you in a few.
This is Leprechaun Tim Pohanka from Pohanka Nissan and Pohanka Hyundai. It's hard to be down on your luck when you're Virginia's first choice for new Nissan and Hyundais, but I need to sell 60 cars this week. Right now, I'll pay you big bucks for your good luck. Bring down any good luck charm you've got, and based on the sale price of the car you choose, I'll give you up to $4,777 off any nicer, newer car this week. Today, your lucky penny is worth plenty, up to $4,777 off any nicer, newer car you want. Stop moping and hoping you'll get approved. With my For the People credit approval process, the banks are looking to get lucky and lend to you, even if you've been turned down before. Bring me any good luck charm and I'll give you up to $4,777 off any nicer, newer car today. Hurry, once I get rid of 60 cars, the luck runs out. All offers require bank approval, so call us at 1-800-POHANKA, visit Pohanka Nissan and Pohanka Hyundai on Route 1 in Fredericksburg, or better yet, log on to timpohankaforthepeople.com. And when we make a deal, I promise it'll be your lucky day. I'm Tim Pohanka, and I'm a leprechaun for the people.
Hello to all my friends in the DMV. I am Rock Newman from the Rock Newman Show. I want to tell you about the MGM Grand National Harbor, the most exciting project to come to the District, Maryland, or Virginia in quite some time. You're going to have great fun. Come on down, support this project with all you have. It is going to be wonderful for the area. We're going to increase our tax base. We're going to get funding for the police department, for ambulance, for fire, for education. It is really a project that is going to benefit our area. Folks, we want to support in a very strong DMV kind of way this great project from the MGM Grand National Harbor.
And now, The Rock Newman Show.
Folks, welcome back. This is the Rock Newman Show today, Saturday, October the 12th, 2013. Really want to thank those of you taking the time to look at us around the world via live streaming at rocknewmanshow.com. And I want to please tell those that have missed today's show, they can hear the show tonight on 1480 AM in Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. Between 6 and 9 p.m. There is a rebroadcast every Saturday night from 6 to 9 p.m. of the Rock Newman Show. And I want to thank WPWC We Act Radio for carrying our broadcast. We're going to have some exciting news for you in the coming weeks about some other platforms that we may be venturing into. So stay tuned. Tell all your friends that we've got some exciting news coming up in the not too distant future. We'll come back to my guest, Carol Fennelly. Carol, I am a bit aware of what I found to be a really fascinating story. And that is that in life, we're going to go back and again talk about this legendary figure that was such an important part of your life, a guy by the name of Mitch Snyder, who the homeless shelter here in Washington, D.C. now is named after, who the movie The Samaritan was named after. Lead role was done by Charlie Sheen. He played Mitch Snyder. But there is reports that you guys sort of came together and in a love relationship. You never actually, walked down the aisle or went through the justice of the peace to be married. Mitch met an untimely suicidal death. And at that time, you were not legally or didn't have paperwork that you guys were married.
Right.
But at some point, folks, listen to this. You find out fascinating information on the Rock Newman Show. At some point after Mitch's death, you were declared formally his wife.
That's right. That's right, yeah.
So this gentleman was deceased. And
A year.
Yeah, for a year earlier, and you weren't married.
Right.
But you were declared his wife a year after he died.
That's right.
Please tell us about that. You are not just an angel, you're showing off miracle worker.
Well, yeah, well, at the time the movie was made, CBS paid Mitch $150,000 for the rights to his life. CCNV, we were an anarchist community. We didn't believe in government. We wouldn't bend we were sort of like the Tea Partiers. Oh my God, this is disturbing.
But way on the other,
other side.
on the right hand side. Oh, I should know, not right hand, on the right side.
On the right, the correct side. Yeah.
On the real right side.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So we weren't tax exempt. We weren't even incorporated. And
Y'all were just doing the work.
And we were just doing the work. We were tax resistors. None of us paid taxes. And so at the time of his death, just prior to his death, the IRS had come looking around, sniffing after us because we didn't fit into any of their boxes. And then they discovered this $150,000 that came to Mitch because there was no legal entity to give it to.
Right.
Had to come to Mitch, and Mitch just signed the check over, and it went into the CCNV coffers. Well, he was billed $80,000 in back taxes and fines. And they pursued him hotly and said that any money that came into his estate at the time of his death that they would claim. And we had some wonderful attorneys who were helping us through a number of different processes, dealing with his estate and all of that. And they said that there was a way that I could become his legal spouse through common law process. And so we did that, and I became his wife legally a year after he died, through the courts, and was able to claim. Let me just say, within the District of Columbia, there's a provision that says that if someone dies and you are married, the spouse can claim up to $10,000 in the estate for burial fees and things like that. Right. So there was less than $10,000 in his estate, and from a court case and an inheritance or something. And so I was able to claim that money as his legal spouse and then turn it over to CCNV.
What a fascinating story.
I know.
What and that's one for the books. I mean, frankly speaking, I'd never heard of that.
I know. I hadn't either, but I said, the Cracker Jack people were the attorneys who
Yeah.
figured that out for us and helped us go through the process.
So attorneys can do some good work from time
man,
to time.
I'm telling you, they were great.
Carol, again, you have such a rich history. Let's go back again to talk about that time when you all were at the shelter. I'd like to ask you something. You did work that was committed, helped make people's lives better. You fed the hungry, and you clothed those without clothes, and you gave shelter to those without shelter. You're dealing with a population of people that, by the very definition of them being homeless, by and large, those folks are, not necessarily stable. And you run into some situations that I'm sure, are fraught with danger. I'd like for you to reflect, just sort of give some context and fabric to this interview on a time that when you might have been most scared.
That's an easy one. Just before Mitch died, I moved back. My kids were still at home, and we had a couple of smaller houses around the city. So I lived in those with my kids when they were in high school. But my last child graduated from high school, and I decided I wanted to move back down to the larger shelter at 2nd and D Street.
Moving actually into the shelter.
Yeah, moving into the shelter,
Right.
yeah. And Mitch died not too long after that, actually. But there was a huge drug problem down there at that point. And when he died, the drug dealers were making real aggressive moves into the shelter, bringing weapons in and holding people up, and it was bad. It was really bad. And so with some other staff people, we launched an anti-drug campaign in the area, and did a lot of work to try and just clear.
Now, that's where the big shelter is there now, on New Jersey
Right.
Avenue.
Yeah,
Right.
2nd and D Street. So we did a lot of work to kind of clean out some of the population that were really involved in the heavy drug trafficking.
Right.
But it made a lot of people really angry,
Yeah.
really angry, and they put a contract on me and let me know that there was a contract on me, and I talked to the police about it, and they looked into it, and in fact, it was true. And I had to have police protection when I left the building for a couple months, and finally, so I don't know, somehow it got straightened out. And
Wow.
through one of those, a friend of mine at my church, Amani Temple, was going at the time, worked it out for me. And
Now, when you say worked it out for you,
I don't know. I didn't ask any questions. He said, "I'll get this
so in
straight."
other words, there was a contract, and at some point,
Yeah.
through relationships, connections, the contract was voided.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
you sit here and talk to us today.
Yeah, that was a scary time though, and I couldn't leave the building without protection, and so it was kind of a scary time.
Right. Okay. So take us now.
Let me just tell you
Oh, sure. Please
there's
do. Please.
another part of this story.
Please.
Fast forward a number of years, and we've got this program going, at the prisons, and I get a letter from one of the fathers in our program, who tells me, writing to apologize to me because he was one of the people who were involved in that contract.
Really?
He was in our program.
What did he say in the letter?
Oh gosh, it was a while ago. Just I'm calling. I did a lot of bad things, and now that I'm involved in your program, I see how bad they really were and how destructive they were, and I'm sorry. That kind of stuff. It was kind of sat me down.
Wow. So, if you would, again, you explain to us how the program works, where the kids come to the facility here at Hope House. And again, give the address out to the Hope House.
We use a P.O. box.
Okay.
It's P.O. Box 60682, Washington, D.C., 2039.
Okay.
Most of our work, because most of the D.C. inmates are not in the area,
Yeah.
most of our work is done outside the D.C. area. We do teleconferencing. We have like a Halloween party coming up on November 1st. We have events for the Christmas party and events for the families.
Right.
But most of our work is done in prisons. Our summer camp program, until last year, was the only one in the nation for fathers in prison. There's a lot of interest in it now, and it's being replicated in other states. And
Tell us about it. Tell us about it. Tell us
the
about
summer
that program.
camp is just magic. It's
Yeah.
just magic. Kids go for it's actually 6 days. We have an overnight camp where we stay with the kids and do campy things like campfires and s'mores and swimming and sports and things like that.
So now, this is something that's set up somewhere near the prison?
Near the prison, correct.
So you get a group of kids. How many do you take?
Camp, because we do it's an art-based camp.
Yeah.
First of all, let me say, all of the art in the prison is geared towards building family,
Right.
and building family relationships and helping fathers and children get to know each other better.
Right.
So one of the projects we do is a life-size mural of a perfect day together. And they're 10 feet long and 8 feet tall,
Yeah.
and they're life-size murals, and they're just magnificent. They're three-dimensional multimedia pieces, so we take up a lot of space.
Yeah.
So we can only, and we do camp in the visiting room generally. So we can only take about 15 to 16 kids.
Now, when you say camp is in the visiting room, so you actually set up cots and that sort of thing, and they live there?
No. They sleep at the campground where we do the camp, but they're inside the
Okay.
prison for 5 hours with their dads.
Okay.
And it's structured time. We do
Right.
competitive games because we want the families to learn to work together
So
as a team.
you take what are mostly these inner city kids.
Yes.
Excuse me. And you take them to Cumberland, Maryland,
Yes.
or wherever it might be,
Right.
somewhere outside the prison camp,
Yeah.
close proximity.
Yeah.
They actually do camping for a week
Yeah.
out in the nature.
Yeah, they're in cabins,
Sure.
but it's a church camp kind of setting.
Uh-huh.
But they're inside the prison. The main part of the day is inside the prison with their dads.
5 hours for the day. Right.
Yeah, and that's the part that counts for the kids.
Yeah.
They could live without everything else as long as they could see their dads and spend
Yeah.
that time with their dads,
Yeah.
especially at the Supermax, where visiting is a non-contact visit there.
Yeah.
Most of these kids never see their fathers
Right.
except for summer camp.
Right.
So, they go in and they cling to their dads the whole week that they were in there.
Yeah.
And these are not easy inmates, these
Yeah.
are not easy guys.
Right.
But they love their children, and their bad citizenship does not necessarily indicate their quality of fatherhood.
Right.
And they're great dads to their kids, and their kids love them.
You describe that, and I feel it. You describe it as magical. Why do you say it's magical?
Because it's transformative. It's transformative for the fathers, and you have to be there. You should come over for the last day of camp sometime.
I want to. I want to, but I'd like for you to continue that.
The fathers, even if they come in, maybe iffy about camp, by the end of the week, if they never got the damage that their mistake made on the lives of their children, they get it on the last day when their kids walk out the door. And watching them change in that way, watching them be transformed over the course of the week is magic. And this year we had prison officials from the Bureau of Prisons who came over. We've been at this federal facility for 12 years,
Right.
and some very high-level people, finally came over to see summer camp. They were blown away. They were just blown away, and because it's so transformative, and watching the dads at the last day, talk about their children and how much they love their children and how sorry they are for abandoning them to go to prison,
Right.
is just it's heartbreaking and heart lifting all at
Do
once.
you get much response from the inmate? Do you ever get any correspondence from the inmate talking about the experience they've had?
Well, as a volunteer in a federal facility, I'm not allowed to correspond outside of the context of our work.
I see.
But, when I go in to record books, we do this recording program, and I go over like every 6 weeks,
Right.
for instance, to FCI Cumberland and record books. And let me just say that since 1999, we've recorded 18,000 books, fathers reading to their children,
Right.
and sent them home to the kids. But, I get a chance to talk with the dads, and we get a lot of time together, yeah. And we have meetings prior to camp, so I get a lot of time with them.
So obviously, without calling any kind of name, without calling any names, can you share, like a conversation you've had with a father who's gone through that experience, something that resonates with you, that you remember?
It's more of a process that happens. There aren't necessarily aha moments that happen, but because kids can come to camp for 6 years,
Yeah.
from the time they're 9 till they're 14.
Right.
And so it's a process that the fathers and children go through together. And I can tell you, I want to tell you a story about Bill.
Yeah.
And Bill was this real tough guy.
Yeah.
He'd been in the system since he was a little kid.
Yeah.
Juvenile justice and then all the way. And
he's approximately how old now?
he was in his 50s. He was an older dad.
Okay.
He had never met his son.
Right.
And his son came to camp, and they had 6 years of camp together.
And he met his son for the first time when his son was how old?
His son was 9
Okay.
when he came to camp for
Okay.
the first time.
Okay.
And so they, every day at the end of camp, and this guy he was so hardcore. He was trying to get sent to a higher security facility just to bury himself in prison because he had nothing. Nothing, no family, nothing to live for until he met his son.
Yeah.
And then, and I have to say, he was disliked immensely by the staff. And are we winding down?
Come on.
Okay.
Keep going.
Anyway, he spent 6 years in camp. He was completely transformed. And there's a real sad ending to the story, but it's really life affirming too. And I'll tell you that when we come back.
So transformative
Yeah.
is the operative
He became
word
a model inmate, actually.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, with all the work you've done, at some point part of living is leaving this earthly realm. What do you want on your little tombstone?
She threw
Or
a
big
good
one.
She threw a good party.
She threw a good party. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. We're blessed by your presence.
Thank you.
Folks, that wraps up the 10 o'clock hour with the great Carol Fennelly, Creative Hope House. In the 11 o'clock hour, Rhozier, Roach Brown, will be joining us here in the Langston Hughes room at the Busboys and Poets restaurant. You still got time to come down to hear some conversation and have a great brunch here at 14th and V Street, Northwest Washington, D.C. Back in a few moments with the Roach on the Rock Newman Show.
This is Leprechaun Tim Pohanka from Pohanka Nissan and Pohanka Hyundai. It's hard to be down on your luck when you're Virginia's first choice for new Nissan and Hyundais, but I need to sell 60 cars this week. Right now, I'll pay you big bucks for your good luck. Bring down any good luck charm you've gotten based on the sale price of the car you choose. I'll give you up to $4,777 off any nicer, newer car this week. Today, your lucky penny is worth plenty, up to $4,777 off any nicer, newer car you want. Stop moping and hoping you'll get approved. With my For the People credit approval process, the banks are looking to get lucky and lend to you, even if you've been turned down before. Bring me any good luck charm and I'll give you up to $4,777 off any nicer, newer car today. Hurry, once I get rid of 60 cars, the luck runs out. All offers require bank approval, so call us at 1-800-POHANKA, visit Pohanka Nissan and Pohanka Hyundai on Route 1 in Fredericksburg, or better yet, log on to timpohankaforthepeople.com. And when we make a deal, I promise it'll be your lucky day. I'm Tim Pohanka, and I'm a leprechaun for the people.
And now, the Rock Newman Show.
Folks, welcome back to the 11 o'clock hour of the Rock Newman Show. We're at the Langston Hughes Room at Busboys and Poets, 14th and V Street, Northwest Washington, D.C. I really want to thank my two previous guests, Dr. Bernard Demczuk and Carol Fennelly from Hope House. Just 2 great hours of programming here, and we have another one because we have a fascinating individual, someone who has been a fixture in the Washington, D.C. Scene, someone who has had to endure incredible lows, but also had the courage and the tenacity to overcome and come out of those valleys and experience some very real peaks. Someone who, through his trials and tribulations, has continued to make an impact in the Washington, D.C. area. As we do this program, and our agenda is trying to do programming that makes the world a little better place to live, it is this kind of individual who I have with me in this hour, who we can call on for having gone through those valleys, having learned the lessons of doing it the wrong way, coming upon some challenges that many would have succumbed in this life, and this man continues to smile, and he continues to greet all with his now famous greeting.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Roach Brown, and welcome to the Rock Newman Show.
Thank you, buddy.
When you see Roach, if you see him in church, if you see him in the boardroom, if you see him at Busboys and Poets, he will greet you with that fantastic smile, that effervescent smile and charisma, and say, Merry Christmas, Roach. Where does that come from? Where did that come from?
Well, Rock, it's a combination of things. Christmas means to be alive, to be healthy. I was in prison, and I got hurt in solitary. Placed in solitary for 8 months, brother, and was paralyzed. And I wrote the words, Christmas in prison, in the dust, in this little cell. And the doctors walked by and refused to give me any treatment. So for 8 months, I stayed in this cell, and I just wrote the word, Christmas in prison, in the dust. I took the blanket over to the side and made sure that the breeze from the door wouldn't disturb what I had written. And I wrote a poem called Christmas in Prison. I got arrested around Christmas time and received a life sentence. I got beat up and injured and placed in solitary around Christmas, and I was paralyzed. My mother and father died. I got a presidential commendation around Christmas. I sued the prison around Christmas. So everything good and bad is about Christmas. But most of all, I can move my body. I'm no longer paralyzed. I have to beat myself inside to try to make my body respond. And when that came out and opened the door and they let me out, I had 20 years to life, but it was Christmas. I didn't care about how much time I had. And when I walked around the prison, none of the guys would talk to me. Everybody would leave. 2,000 guys, and I didn't have one friend out of 2,000, because the word was Roach had came back from the insane asylum, and he running around there hollering Merry Christmas, and the joker got life. Don't even know how much time he got?
Yeah.
It didn't matter about the time. If I could move my body, move my head, twiddle my fingers, brother, it was Christmas.
Yeah. Merry Christmas.
Well, Merry Christmas to you too.
Roach, you said you wrote a poem.
Yes.
Do you remember the poem?
I remember parts of the poem. The poem described how the bed, the face bowl, and the commode, and we all became one, and how we made friends with the bugs, the ants. I had a few ants that I got extremely close to. I used to lay food on the floor and let the ants come in and nibble on it. And when this ant wouldn't show up for a certain time, I was upset, man. I missed the ant. You know what I mean? I don't know if somebody stepped on him, squashed him, or whatever. But I got into it with these ants. And the poem described the pain, the hurt of being totally alone. We heard people how they cry about being alone, but this is not alone.
So was this in Lorton?
It was in Lorton Reformatory.
So you were in solitary confinement for
8.5 months.
For 8.5 months. Okay, so Roach, if you don't mind, here at the Rock Newman Show, and folks, look, Roach has a show every week on WPFW. Let me just say that, we have the kind of, I'd like to think we have the kind of security here during this programming. Some folks, own restaurants and won't eat at somebody else's restaurant. They have a radio show and won't talk about somebody else's radio show or a TV show. Let me tell you something, man. I've seen Roach in action. I've heard Roach. He does a program that is called Crossroads. It's on WPFW, FM 89.3. It is a fantastic community-oriented broadcast station here in Washington, D.C. It's a 50,000-watt station, has great reach, and Roach's show, Cutting Edge Criminal Justice Issues, is produced and hosted by Roach, and it is a fantastic program. It is at every Tuesday. Every Tuesday from 11 to noon, and it is just a show that has fascinating information. And Roach, what I was getting to is, sort of like yourself with your program, because part of what you do is you keep it real, and you try to keep it real here. So if we could delve, you just sort of matter-of-factly said, I was in prison, I was in solitary confinement. Where did you go to prison for the first time?
The first time was when I was a juvenile, 9 years old, and repeatedly since then, but this particular case, I went to jail for armed robbery. Me and 2 other guys went to take somebody's money, and we got into a gunfight, and the gentleman lost his life. I was wounded slightly. As a result of that, we received...
Is that where were you paralyzed from that injury?
No, I was paralyzed from a guard's ride. It was the first and only guard's ride in the history of the American correctional system in '68.
At Lorton.
At Lorton Reformatory. We were watching the civil rights movements on TV and saw the dogs being placed on women and kids being hosed, and the brothers in there laughing. Yeah. Watching it. And I said, man, that could be your mother, your sister, or your girlfriend, somebody, and it's us.
Right.
So during that time, it was only 2 black correction officers in Lorton, and they could not discipline a white inmate. And they would call us the N-word to our face. We couldn't eat at the same time with the white inmates. Right. You couldn't live in a cell. If the prison was crowded and there was a cell empty and there was 1 white inmate in there, right, they would not put a black guy in there. Right. So it was segregated in there. And that's what happened. I went to prison, I got life, and I got injured while in Lorton because of the civil rights movement.
Now this was, you got injured. Did you get injured before solitary confinement?
Yes.
Okay.
Solitary confinement, what happened was we had a strike. We burned the commissary down. We tried to say that you can't call us the N-word no more. You couldn't treat us like we were nothing. Right. And the guys come to me and said, man, since you got life, you ain't never going home. They can't hurt you no more. Right. So I get up and be one of the spokesmen. And when I explained to the guys, I said, I get up and speak. But if they come in for me, and you know they coming, I want y'all, the same guys, to raise your hand for me to be the representative. Right. Would you be the same guys to raise your hand or help keep them from taking me out of here?
Support you, right.
And when they came in and said that you're not entitled to no rights, whatever we do to you, you have to take it. Mm-hmm. So we said, no. And they came in, Rock, and they whipped us unmercifully. I never had a beating that bad in my life. They beat me for 3 solid days. I didn't realize that the correction officers and most of them prisons all around the country are family related. They all related, sons, fathers, brothers, the wives or sisters, they working in the prisons.
Long history.
So if you hit one correction officer, right, he got brothers, uncles, and cousins, and they work on different shifts. Yeah. So every time the shift changed, I had to take my towels and wrap them all around me, and take part of the blanket to put them around my neck and wrap them around to make sure I can cushion the blows.
Because you know it's coming.
Oh yeah, it was coming. And it came for 3 solid days. And after that, I was paralyzed. I couldn't move. I'm laying in a hole. Then they came in on top of being paralyzed after these whippings. They placed shackles on my ankles and around my waist.
Now, so you were in the prison population. You were trying to sort of, you were leading, call it what you will. You were trying to, maintain some dignity while you're there. And you get these constant whippings. Mm-hmm. In the cell, in the prison population. Yes. And then as a result of your defiance there, you get put in solitary confinement.
Solitary confinement.
Okay, now describe for me, please, solitary confinement.
It was a room about 3'4" or 4'5", a bed, a commode, and a face bowl. And man, it is like being at the end of the world.
When you said 3 or 4, so in other words, 3 or 4. Let's give it the best case scenario, as you remember. 4 feet by 5 feet.
It was four steps up and 3 steps across. I could walk up and forth, back and forth, the long way in the room. 4 steps.
So maybe about 6 foot.
6 foot. Yeah.
Enough for a bed to be in there for you to lie down.
Right.
To stretch out at least in that area.
And you can only take 2 or 3 steps at any one time in that space. And you stayed in there. Then they cut the lights off. And it got so bad, Rock, where my mother died and father before I went in. My girl married the police. So I was really messed up. I thought the police married my woman to get me in jail. You know, you think all kinds of crazy things.
Right.
You know what I mean? So while in there, it was like having skin peeled off of your body. The pain was so intense. The loneliness and the frustration was, and the hurt, man, was like, I would sit there and just cry for days. And I didn't know how many days I cried for.
Yeah.
Then I found out that there's some places where water ain't wet. The water wasn't wet no more. The tears wasn't wet. My face began to burn. My neck, the body began to burn. And all the while, I'm beating on myself to try to say, we came in here together, Jack, and we leaving out. I'm not going to leave near part of me in here. Right. And when the guards came back, and I wanted to cry and say, please, Mr. White Man, please let me out. Mm-hmm. But when he opened up that little door, something just kicked in and said, to hell with him. And I just stood back there, went back to my bed and just cried. And man, it's the kind of pain that it hurt so deep that I died. I believe I died. I saw me floating around in this little room, and I saw me on the bed.
So you had what people refer to as an astral projection, where your spirit or something left, and you looked at. Now that happened. So that was like one experience one day.
No, that was a combination of a whole bunch of things, man. Like, when I stayed in there for that 8 months, it drives you. I mean, you can't. Nobody to talk to, no newspapers, no magazines, nothing to read. You don't hear nothing. They cut the lights off. So it was a series of events that were happening.
So when they say solitary,
brother,
that truly was solitary. Now you talked about the dust on the floor. This is dust on a wood floor, metal floor.
No, it was a linoleum floor, and the heating system was under the floor, and they would turn the heat up. And the floor would get so hot that I would take my food and put it on the floor, and the heat from the floor would dry out my food, would give me something to write with. And I would put them in, crush it up.
Wait a minute. Explain that. Because, I mean, what I'm trying to do for my listening audience tonight, I'm trying to understand myself also, is, I've mentioned in promoting that you were going to be on the show. I've said the multiple lives of Roach Brown. Mm-hmm. And to me, to go into a prison, you sort of, to some extent, on some level, you lose your life.
Yes.
Then to go into solitary confinement.
You lose your mind.
That's another, in my estimation, loss of life. So I'm trying to intentionally be graphic here so that people can understand and appreciate when you hear the word solitary confinement, but we really don't connect to it and attach to it. And part of what I want my listening audience to appreciate is what that really means, solitary confinement.
Well, what that means is there's a prison within the prison, and then there's a dungeon within that prison.
Yeah.
And that's where they place you, and it's like being locked in your bathroom for 8 months or 2 years or 10 years, and you don't come out. But they didn't have 23-hour lockdown back then. You stayed in there 24 hours a day. When I first went in, it was during the bread and water administration. They gave you 2 slices of hard bread in the morning, 2 cups of lukewarm water, and that's what you got 3 times a day. And ironically, it was an inmate there who got that change. And his brother is now the chairman of the U.S. Parole Commission, and he was the former chief of police in D.C., Ike Fullwood. So his brother was inside, was a jailhouse lawyer, and he filed to say that this drastic diet we had on, because after 15 days in solitary, you come out, you look like Jesus Christ. Your jaws are sunk in. You don't eat. If you don't eat nothing but bread and water for 15 days, you lose weight drastically.
Right.
Then with your stress and your pain and the loneliness, that's only accelerates that situation. So it's like being locked in. The closest thing I can come to people can identify with it is being on a spaceship going to the moon. And halfway between Earth and the moon they push you out. And you look at the earth and you say, but nobody can hear you.
Oh, man.
And nobody comes.
Yeah.
No mail, no phone calls, no books, no magazines, no nothing. So you just let that. And my best friend became my mind. I lay there and closed my eyes. And every picture I saw of France, Europe, I would go. And I would see myself walking down the street. That was the only thing that enabled me to do that. And then I found out.
When you said to do that, you mean to survive
To survive.
that hell.
To keep from going insane. Then when insanity came so deep, that if I forgot my name, what time it was.
Yeah. You didn't know what day it was.
You couldn't. It was like total darkness. I didn't know if I slept for 1 hour, 2 hours, 4 hours. I didn't know if it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I didn't know what time of the year it was. You sent to prison to serve time, but not to lose your mind.
Right.
And when you lose your mind, there's nobody you can call. You can't even call yourself.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like being caught between moon and the earth, and you're hollering.
Yeah.
And nobody comes.
Oh my. Roach Brown just finished describing hell on earth. Here at the Rock Newman Show, we're going to take a quick break. I can't wait till we get back to talk to the man known as Roach Brown, a living legend in the Washington, D.C. community. We'll be back in just a few moments on the Rock Newman Show.
This is Leprechaun Tim Pohanka from Pohanka Nissan and Pohanka Hyundai. It's hard to be down on your luck when you're Virginia's first choice for new Nissan and Hyundais, but I need to sell 60 cars this week. Right now, I'll pay you big bucks for your good luck. Bring down any good luck charm you've got, and based on the sale price of the car you choose, I'll give you up to $4,777 off any nicer, newer car this week. Today, your lucky penny is worth plenty, up to $4,777 off any nicer, newer car you want. Stop moping and hoping you'll get approved. With my For the People credit approval process, the banks are looking to get lucky and lend to you, even if you've been turned down before. Bring me any good luck charm and I'll give you up to $4,777 off any nicer, newer car today. Hurry, once I get rid of 60 cars, the luck runs out. All offers require bank approval, so call us at 1-800-POHANKA, visit Pohanka Nissan and Pohanka Hyundai on Route 1 in Fredericksburg, or better yet, log on to TimPohankaForThePeople.com. And when we make a deal, I promise it'll be your lucky day. I'm Tim Pohanka, and I'm a leprechaun for the people.
Hello, everybody. I'm Rock Newman from The Rock Newman Show. And I am absolutely flattered to have as one of my fine advertisers the DMV's greatest corporate citizen. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about the Pohanka Automotive Group. If you have any automotive needs whatsoever, if you want to sell your car, buy a car, trade in your car, have your car serviced, whatever you need, see my good friends at the Pohanka Automotive Group. You will be well taken care of, I promise. I'm Rock Newman. I might be there. Come on down and see our good friends at Pohanka Automotive Group.
And now, The Rock Newman Show.
Folks, welcome back to The Rock Newman Show. Today is October the 12th, 2013. We're broadcasting from the Langston Hughes Room at Busboys and Poets as the room fills up here with diners. eating on grits and eggs and all of those kinds of things. You know, I have something here, and very rarely do I read much, you know, when I'm doing this show, but this just cries out for it. Roach Brown, your inner voice is never wrong. It says, an amazing journey from the outhouse to the jailhouse to the crazy house to the White House. How did this criminal justice activist get his life sentence commuted by President Gerald Ford? Now, these are questions. How did he get awarded a $300,000 civil judgment for injuries received in prison? How did he direct a performance by the inner voices to members of the U.S. Senate? How did he design a drug exhibit at the Smithsonian Museum for the White House? How did he get invited by members of Congress to testify on national legislation? How did he design a drug prevention program in the Embassy of Ghana? How did he win acclaim at the New York, Sundance, Cannes, and International Film Festival? Write and direct award-winning plays, produce a radio and television show. How did he design and implement a correctional program, pre- and post-release? How did he develop a prison therapeutic theater troupe, create a nationally acclaimed prison theater troupe while in prison? Okay, I want to go back, Roach. We were just sort of riveted in that last segment on your time in solitary confinement. Did you know while you were there in that hellhole that it was a pit? It was a pit of darkness. Did you know, let's say, a week or two before that you were going to be released, or no?
No.
So at some point, and you know, obviously after the fact, you were in there 8+ months. Yeah. At some point, upon your release from the pit, describe that moment.
Well, when they finally came and opened up the door, after 4 months, usually you go to St. Elizabeth after 4 months. I was in there with 8, and I didn't know my time limit, but I knew I wasn't right. Yeah. But when they opened that door and they had a wheelchair and something you don't see no more, they had a straitjacket, them old straitjackets, and a hypodermic needle. And they opened up the door, and I said, wait a minute, how long was I in there for? And they said, 8 months. I said, you mean I got 4 years and 4 months I didn't use? Get out the way. So they backed up, and they moved the chair back. And I said, I don't need to go back to John Howard. I'm ready.
You don't need to go back to John Howard. What's
John Howard Provision is
at St. Elizabeth.
It's for the criminally insane. I did 3 years over there for the criminally insane, and that was the best time I had in my life, rocking the crazy house. Boy, I had a ball with the nuts. I laughed all day.
You spent 3+ years at St. Elizabeth for the criminally insane.
Yeah.
Do you feel as if during that period of time you were insane?
Yes, I was definitely insane. It went on for about, I was in a catatonic trance. When they brought me out of solitary, I didn't know what a catatonic trance was. I just sit there. And I couldn't talk. I couldn't reach me. And if you spoke to me, today is Saturday. If you say, hey, Roach, I was on a 2-day delay. I would only respond to you on Monday. Hey, Rock, I'm okay, but you're already gone.
But that's 2 days later.
That's 2 days later.
Yeah.
So all of my systems were out of whack. My emotions, I laughed when I saw.
So you had been beaten into paralysis.
Yeah.
You had been beaten so badly you were paralyzed. You went in. Now they put you in the pit after you were paralyzed.
Yes, while paralyzed. That's what he took me. The ride was such, Rock, that we had this ride, and for 3 days, I mean, the guards came in. It was like something out of Roots. When the Klan come in and they just beat everybody. I've never seen that kind of fear where all the guards had sticks, baseball, and everybody they passed, they just hit you, whip you, punched you, kick you. And this guard do it, you turn around and you get the same thing from another guard. You said, oh my goodness, there's nobody you could call to get him to stop this.
Yeah.
And this just went on, and it was, man.
Let me help you with this part. There you go. Uh-huh.
The fear was unbelievable. I've never seen guys.
So then you go in for 8.5 months, you're in the pit, and then you come out of there and you spend 3+ years in St. Elizabeth. Okay.
And while in St. Elizabeth, I met somebody from the drama department from Howard University, and asked me to put me in the play. I got into play and I liked it. And I fell in love with drama like you fall in love with a woman. And all my pain and frustration I channeled into drama. So they transferred me from St. Elizabeth's back to Lawton.
Right.
When I got to Lawton, I wanted to start a drama group. And I went around the prison trying to get somebody to join my drama group. And in there, if you were an actor, that was considered to be effeminate.
Well, okay, just one second. So while at St. Elizabeth, you said, yeah, I was insane. I was like in a catatonic state.
Yeah.
What was it? What was there a particular moment when you came out and started to feel as if you were connected back to yourself?
It was like a subconscious or unconscious thing that was going on inside. Something inside of my brain said, don't give up, just hold on, but it was nothing to hold on to. My hands were handcuffed, but something just said, hold on. And after a while, this process began to take stuff because my anger, my determination kept saying, you ain't gonna die here, boy. Don't die here. Yeah. And this little thing in the part of my brain just made me just resist. And everything else in me was gone. I lost everything else except my mind. That's when I said.
What does that mean, you lost everything else?
I lost everything. I didn't have no family, no buddies, no friends. I didn't have nobody I could talk to. There was nobody that could mentor me. There was not even a correction officer I could talk. It was like being totally alone, man. I mean, in saying I was alone, then I was further alone inside of myself.
Yeah.
So you being double alone and nowhere to go and nobody to call.
Right.
So what happened was my mind became my best friend. I also lay there and just think and say, well, I don't care what they do to us, but me and you, boy, we're going to be all right. And I'm just playing with my mind and all that kind of, hey, I didn't care what he was doing. After a while, when somebody walked by, the guards would walk by and say something, I didn't know if my eyes were open or closed because I was so used to being in total darkness.
Right. And so in that total darkness, you used to take some leaps of fantasy, seeing yourself in Europe or I mean,
anywhere.
Sort of in that state, do you remember, some of the, sort of the more recurring fantasies, visions that you had?
Yes, the main one I kept having was the belief that I was coming out of prison. And I started seeing myself walking down the street, having a house, a car, a girlfriend, things that were denied me, things I would never, ever, ever get.
Right. Because you had life.
I had life. I wasn't scheduled to come home at all.
Right.
I was supposed to die there.
Right.
And I'm saying, I'm not. And just by kept resisting or being defiant and saying that enabled me to have whatever ammunition or substance inside to let me to resist what I was going through. And it was...
So you allowed yourself to think or forced yourself to whatever it was, I have life in prison, but this is not my reality.
Yes. And I knew I was going home. When you asked a question about what I saw when I came out of solitary, when you opened up that door after 8 months, it was like being in a microwave. A microwave accelerates things. And my pain was accelerated. That's how the name Inner Voices come about. I saw things about me that I did not like. I was rotten. I stole from everybody. I took stuff from my mother. I thought I could get out on everybody. When you find out that you ain't nothing, that you are rotten, and you can't face it, and you keep turning your head like, but ain't nowhere to run. And when you go through all that, it's like going in the closet and pulling out stuff that you no longer use. And when I got through that process, I knew I was going home. I didn't know how.
There was a certain freedom that had come even while you might have been there.
Yes.
And then in that, so again, I'm trying to understand. So you found that freedom within yourself.
My inner voice.
You found that inner voice, and you projected with that inner voice, I'm going out there someday.
That's right.
I've been sentenced here, but I'm not going to stay here.
That's right. You know, Rock, it started when they gave me time. When the judge said, you got 20 to life, I said, I can't do it. I ain't going to do it. So the judge said, well, do as much as you can. I said, I'm not going to do it. And everywhere they sent me, when they ask you at a new prison how much time you have, I don't have a day. And they said, but I don't care what the judge said. I'm not accepting this. And I didn't. And I kept that little part of my mind. I didn't know what options were available, but I just would not accept death.
Okay. So, my God, this is a hell of a story. So you do that solitary confinement. You're over there. You leave St. Elizabeth's. They take you back to Lawton. Walk us through to that time. And
when I went to Lawton after being over St. E's for 3 years, would nobody talk to me, Rock? I went to a prison. I knew most of the guys I grew up with. I had family there. and would nobody communicate with me. Because the word was that Roach was crazy. And I'm walking around the prison hollering, Merry Christmas. And I got life, and everybody said, man, he's gone.
Yeah.
He's gone. But dig this. That was the best thing that could have happened. When they called me crazy and put me on the pay me no mind list, I can walk all over the prison by myself.
Yeah, nobody was messing with you.
Nobody messing with me. They say, come that crazy Roach. I walk in the warden's office. I say, Warden, let me take your trash out for you, Warden. So I get the warden's trash, and I dump it. I go get the social warden's trash. I go get the doctor's trash, and I take all the trash back to my cell. And I'm digging through the trash. So I'm finding out what's going on all around the prison. So I just took my clothes and put them on backwards, put my pants on backwards. I should have been crazy a long time ago. I had the keys to the joint.
Yeah.
I could go anywhere I want, all over the prison.
Now let me ask you, with both of my previous guests, I brought up the name Petey Green.
Yeah.
Were you at Lorton any of the time that Petey was there?
I was there with Petey Red Top. The guy named was Carrot Top down up the water tower. Petey and I were buddies before he went to Lorton. Petey was a drunk, an alcoholic.
Yes.
We used to get him a fifth of wine at the football games down in Georgetown in Francis Playground.
Yeah.
And Petey would come at halftime, and everybody would stop playing football because Petey had a fifth of wine, and that joker would talk for days. And in Lorton, when Petey got in trouble, went in the hole, everybody wanted to go to the hole when Petey was in the hole. And the reason why is, for them 15 days, Petey would have you laughing. He knew more jokes and toasts. Right. And so for 15 days, even the guards would come and stop and hide behind the cell just to hear Petey Green rap.
Yeah.
And Petey rapped for 15 days, you didn't know you was in the hole except for the bread and water.
Right.
You know.
Right.
But Petey kept you going. And he was one of my closest friends. And also, he's one of the most honest men I've ever met. Petey Green. He was a bum, a drunk, a winehead. He smelled bad when he was out doing his thing.
Sure.
But one thing about Petey, we was down at the district building one year, and Myron Barry just got there and being mad when that boy got shot, Williams from WHUR.
Yeah.
We in the hall, and Myron said, come over here, Roach, I want to talk to you. He said, I want to ask you something, but I don't want Petey to hear it. I said, wait a minute, stop it. I'm not going to tell you I ain't going to tell Petey. I'm not going to lie to you like that.
Right.
If I say I ain't going to tell him, you know I'm telling you a damn lie, man. I'm going to tell him.
Right.
So I'm going to tell you now. If you don't want him to know, don't tell it to me.
Right.
So I went back and told Petey what Myron said.
Right.
Petey went on radio Sunday morning, Sunday night. Guess what Myron said to Roach down at the district building?
Yeah, right.
He kept it real.
He took there were no sacred cows.
No, that's right.
There were
No prisoners.
sacred cows.
No prisoners.
Okay, so you're back there in prison now. Nobody's talking to you. Take us to the point where because at some point you got released. Now, did you get released at 20 to life? Did you get released on time served, or was there a certain set of circumstances that unfolded that allowed you to get released?
Well, when I came down, I'm abbreviating. I know we're running out of time. Maybe come back from there.
No, we got time.
When I came out from Lorton, I wanted to start a drama group, and I went around the prison. Nobody talked to me, so I had to find ways to get people to talk to me.
Right.
So if I saw a guy play basketball, I would start playing basketball with him, and I would write down everything you say as a character.
Right.
I'd never written a play before, so I went around the prison and got 10 guys who I saw. Each one of them was different.
Right.
There was these 10 personalities you find anywhere. Right. Hard rock, stick 'em up, slim, sporting life, that kind of stuff. And I got these guys to join me. So the warden gave me permission to have a meeting with these guys. And for another year, Rock, I sat in the school Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday nights by myself from 7 to 9 o'clock with nobody come in. All the guys looking in the window, they were that crazy Roach sitting in there all by himself with nobody join.
Right.
That's when I went out and got these guys individually and recruited them to be in this play.
Right.
And we put the play on, and everybody came by with bricks, rocks, onions, shooting. They gonna knock us off the stage.
Right.
Because then they said that to be an actor means to be a sissy.
Yeah.
And you didn't want that tag in there.
Sure.
So I went on. We put the play on, and we got a 27-minute standing ovation at the end of the play. And this was the first time I stood up in the prison and I cried like a baby in front of the whole population, because it took 3 years to get to this point. Yeah. And the hell we went through getting this play together. Right. I had to get guys to fake escapes.
Yeah.
If I wanted these two guys to play a part in the play, they need to rehearse. Yeah. But he in another part of the prison. Yeah. So I get guys to switch their cells or switch their dormitories.
Right.
And if he get caught, he get charged with escape.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So we had to use all kinds of little tactics to get this I was just on one thing, to get this play on, and I had no plan afterwards. But when that play hit, the Washington Post came in, the media, everybody asked him to come out. And the warden, I asked the warden, can you let us out? The community want us. He said, I can't do that, Roach. He said, you got life.
Yeah.
I want my pension, man. Then you've been in the crazy hours, so I can't. Right. So for a whole year, I waited by the back gate. And every time the warden came, I said, what about? He said, no. I said, I'll see you next month, warden. I said, because I done lost everything. I done lost my wife, my life, my freedom, my sanity, my parents. And one thing you ain't got from me, warden, you ain't got my word. Yeah. Y'all can't take that. Right. And I gave my word. And he let us out. And boy, it scared me to death.
let you out, and you were more scared than you'd been in a long time. Wow. A fascinating story of Roach Brown on the Rock Newman Show. We'll be back after these messages.
My baby drives a bull handcuff.
The weekend is here, and no matter what the weather's like outside, you'll find the deals inside here in the beautiful showroom of the all-new Pohanka Hyundai in Capitol Heights during their giant Markdown Madness sale.
Smart shoppers know that every new Hyundai in Pohanka comes with Hyundai Assurance and America's best 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. But why don't you tell them about the Markdown sale, Joe?
I'll be happy to, Kim. Folks, shop around on the web, and you'll see lease payments on a new 2013 Elantra GLS at $179 a month. Today at Pohanka Hyundai, $99 a month. That's right, a $99 payment on a brand new Elantra.
And $89 a month on a new 2013 Accent GLS Automatic. How do they do it, Joe?
It must be the volume, Kim. A brand new building, hundreds of new Hyundais, and Pohanka's low payment and easy credit programs are designed to get everybody driving. But you have to get here today. Rush to the giant Markdown Madness sale at exit 13 off the Capitol Beltway.
Pohanka Hyundai, king of the Beltway. All financing for a limited term on approved HMF credit.
My baby drives a bull handcuff.
Hello to all my friends in the DMV. I am Rock Newman from the Rock Newman Show. I want to tell you about the MGM Grand National Harbor, the most exciting project to come to the District, Maryland, or Virginia in quite some time. You're going to have great fun. Come on down, support this project with all you have. It is going to be wonderful for the area. We're going to increase our tax base. We're going to get funding for the police department, for ambulance, for fire, for education. It is really a project that is going to benefit our area. Folks, we want to support in a very strong DMV kind of way this great project from the MGM Grand National Harbor.
And now, the Rock Newman Show.
Folks, welcome back. This is a fascinating story and a fascinating gentleman that is at the desk here with me on the Rock Newman Show at Busboys and Poets. Thank you so much all for tuning in. As you can hear, we've got a pretty much a full house here today. You may hear some of the noise in the background, but that's what you get when you do it live, and we're going to keep on doing it live. Roach Brown, we were talking about your time in prison, your solitary confinement. Now you have this play. If you would walk us through the time when sort of some of your experiences to the time that you first left Lorton.
Well, we got put the play on, and as I said, we asked the warden for a whole year to let us out, and the requests kept coming in. In fact, the request came in to the point where he finally let us out, and we went out and performed. The whole prison turned out and said that Roach had tricked the warden, and all the inmates surrounded the bus. And they started betting 2-1, 3-1, who's coming back, who's not coming back. They letting us out with life, without no handcuffs and no cuffs, and they knew we was going to escape. I had 15 other guys at 30, 40, 50 years.
Right.
And I wanted to run, Rock.
Yeah.
Boy, I wanted to run, but I didn't.
Yeah.
And I didn't, because I gave the man my word, and we went back. Right. And the warden called us in his office. He said, "You're back." I said, "Yeah."
Do you remember where your first performance was?
It was at the Martin Luther King Center over in Virginia, Hunt Valley. Not Hunt Valley.
Because what had happened is some notoriety had come to the kind of performance you all had put on.
That's
so
right.
Other people were asking, were seeking you to come out. Yeah. And how long did you all do that? How long did you?
We did that for 4.5 years. We did 1,500 performances, for 4.5 years. We came out 5-6 days a week. Richard Pryor came in, the late comedian, and took us out on a special trip to the Apollo. We got 3 standing ovations, went to Chicago, went all around the country, and the warden allowed all 15 guys to go, Rock, with me in charge.
Yeah.
And I'm doing 20 to life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we came back, we did 1,500 performances, and we performed at the Senate, the Smithsonian Museum, et cetera, et cetera. And because these 1,500 performances, nobody ever escaped, the senator and a couple more congressmen went to the president of the United States and got me released, based on the work that we'd done. And while in there, before that happened, I was got a job at Channel 5 while in Lorton, coming out, putting on the play. I leave the play, go to Channel 5, get the camera crew, and we go film and produce a couple of news segments. Then I go back to prison at night, and I come out during the morning.
Wow.
So I'm doing.
So your sentence was eventually commuted?
Yes.
Was that the right term?
Commuted.
Commuted by Gerald Ford. And that was what year?
That was in 75, Christmas Eve.
Christmas.
Of 75.
Here we go.
I can't forget that.
Okay. All right. So you came out, and what did you do when you got out?
When I got out, I was on furlough. This is something else that's interesting. I was on furlough for 4 years serving the life sentence, putting on the voices. They put me on a furlough. So I'm staying in the street, serving the life, driving the car, got an apartment doing a 20 to life, producing shows at Channel 5, and going back to Lorton every night, rehearsing the inner voices for our performances during the day.
Yeah.
So for 7 days a week, Rock, all I did was work. I've been in like 11 years then. I never even had a woman. Didn't want one. I wasn't a punk. Wasn't even interested in that.
Right.
I'm shooting for something that's altogether different. I didn't want to be with a woman. I wanted to make love, and I didn't have nobody to love.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going that way until the time is right.
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 Okay. So Gerald Ford, you're out here and you're doing these programs, and was there a particular point that you wrapped up the inner voices? Did that run in at a certain point?
It ran out. When I won the $300,000 that you mentioned, I won that because of being placed in solitary. When they found out that they placed me in solitary illegally, unjustifiably, and without no medical treatment, then they put me in there for me to die. And it was proven when I went to court that it was a God's ride. So I won the $300,000, and I gave the money away. I gave $100,000 to the lawyer. He got a third. The $200,000 went to Inner Voices.
Yeah.
So we took another national tour and trip. And this is the first time I'm going to say this publicly. I counseled the Inner Voices because the guys was causing so much problems. You know what I mean? I gave all these guys money, paid the bills up in months in advance, gave the women money, and they came back and told the director of the prison system that Roach kept all the money. That hurt me so bad, man, because my family threatened to kill me. People wanted to hurt me. I didn't give none of these other people none of the money. I put it all into this prison program. Right. And I got my life threatened. Nobody wanted to see me. And these guys, when he said that, I dissolved the Inner Voices. Because it hurt. That was my baby, man. And for them guys to say that you taking care of them for about 7 years.
Right.
Then they said, you ain't give me a dime. And when I wrote the first play, they gave me $2,000. I put it in the prison account, and as guys made parole and went home, I gave everybody $500. I didn't need the money. I ain't going nowhere.
Right.
Then when the money ran out, guys threatened me again. I'm going out next week. I want my $5. I don't have no more money. What you do with it? It was mine. And I had to get to fighting about my money that I ran out of.
Okay. So now you're out in the streets. Now we're talking. What time period is this now?
This is like from 75 to about 78.
Okay. Yeah. Now at some point you went back to prison.
Twice. I'm the only guy that got a presidential commutation that got locked up not just once, but twice. I got locked up 9 years after I got that presidential commutation for using cocaine, crack. I was messing around.
Okay.
I went in and did another 8 years.
You did 8 more years at Lorton?
At Lorton.
Okay.
Yeah. No, and they transferred me around the country to the big house.
Okay.
I came out when you and I hooked up with Marion Barry back in 2004, 2003. I got locked up again when I was working for Marion. So
now what happened there? Because part of what happened, you had put together, you really had a lot of impact on Marion Barry becoming reelected after his political death.
Right.
And you put a program together, but was able to get some of the ex-offenders to vote. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you were influential in Marion's campaign. But somewhere right around that time, you went back to prison
again.
And what was the court stated reason for that?
The court stated reason was I was selling in the mayor's office, using the influence of that office. And the problem was a friend asked me to do another friend a favor. The guy was in New York in the penitentiary. He was a Jamaican, and he was trying to get transferred back to Jamaica. I know a little something about this because I've been working as a jailhouse lawyer for the whole while I've been in.
Sure.
So I was working on prisoner transfer treaties to get people transferred back to their country. A friend of mine called me from prison and said, help out Rock.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that Rock had already informed and told on half the guys in New York City.
Oh, wow.
And the guy calling me on the phone, they got the FBI listening to the phone, and we were talking about me trying to help get him to Jamaica, using my influence in the mayor's office.
Sure.
But I didn't know that he was trying to use me to get out, to set me up, so he can get him a time cut. When it happened, I dug what was going down. I pleaded guilty. Yeah, I did it. I shouldn't have done it, but I did it.
Yeah.
He didn't get the time that they had promised him, and I went back in for another 8 years. They told me to do 2, and because I was working for Marion, they asked me every 2 years at the parole board, give us what we want, we'll give you what you want. I said, what do you want? We want Marion Barry. And for 8 years, Rock, the judge only sentenced me to 24 months. I did 96 months because they wanted Marion Barry. I just turned around. When I go up to
how did a sentence get extended if he originally gave you 2?
I had backup. I had parole backup from the previous conviction. So I had like 15 or 18 years left.
So in 2000 and what you went to prison when?
2008. The last time was 2008.
You went in 2008, and you was in how long?
8.
No, that can't be because 2008, 8 years would be 2016. So we got.
No, I'm sorry. 2004 is when I went in.
Yeah. 2004 you went in, and you stayed in until 2012.
Yeah, I did. I came out in 2005.
So when
I know it's kind of confusing.
90. No. Okay, I know what it is. It's Marion got elected in 90. So we got sort
the
of
dates twisted.
Yeah. Okay. So, and you've now, and so now you've started this program here. that you broadcast every week on WPFW. You do speaking engagements and that sort of thing. Tell us about your prison advocacy work and what motivated you to do this program, which really is focused on prison issues.
Well, because of what we're talking about, Rock, it hurt, man, to be in them places and nobody come to see you. I didn't get a visit for 5 or 6 years. And I see so many people hurting, man. I see guys going insane. And you can see them at the brink of losing their mind, but there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
You want to stop him. You my buddy, and you see him, you see the light going out in his eyes.
Yeah.
Then you see the mothers come in, and you had Carol Fennelly here earlier. One of the most traumatic things is to go to a woman's prison on Sunday morning and see the little kiddies come in to see their mommy. And when they see their mommy and they break out running and grab them and they hug, and there's so much pain and love there, then the correction officer come over and say, break it up. You're only allowed one hug, one kiss, and the little kitty ain't seen their daddy or mommy for a while, and they want to crawl on their lap. If they don't stop, they would terminate the visit. When you see this kind of insensitivity, man, and this kind of pain, and y'all get letters the other day, a guy got double life without parole. People been in solitary 20, 30, 40, 50. I give up close to 100 letters a month, man, and it hurts, Rock. I got to duck people in the street because I ain't got but $30, $40. And if I stop, I got to give it to this guy 10, this guy 10 to 20, and it ain't no whole lot of money.
Right.
But still, people, I want somebody to help me, and wasn't nobody there until later. So I'm just doing what they say in the Bible. When you do this for the least of those, you're doing it for me. I broke the law, done everything you could imagine. You know what I mean? Now I found out the best way is the right way. And all I'm trying to do before I go, I don't think I'm going up top. I think I'm going to I get furloughed to go downstairs. You know, but all I want to do is just do as much as I can to help as many people as I can before I get out the way. That's all I want to do.
Yeah. And, I think that it certainly is, we talk so much about, the prison experience. The challenge obviously comes for folks like yourself who have experienced so much of that, is to have an impact and play a role on trying to prevent anybody from going into the system.
There you go. I get invited all over the country, man, to and speak at prisons. I always request to go to an insane asylum. I don't care what city I go to. I want to go to an insane asylum.
And why is that?
Because I can relate and I can identify with them. And I can understand what it feels like to be locked up inside. To be locked up in solitary is in a room, but to be locked up inside of you is double rough. Yeah. And I know what it's like to be confined, personally confined inside yourself, and you don't know how to get out. You know what I mean?
And what is it that you tell those that you see in that condition?
I follow my inner voice. I walk in the room and I sit down on the floor. And I don't care who they are, how old they are, whether they're white, black, they ain't got nothing to do with color. I sit there and I send out my vibe, my inner voice. I start checking everybody out. And I started rapping. I go on what I feel. And whatever I feel is right. Mm-hmm. And I said this another day, I'm lucky. I don't have to lie no more, Rock. The beautiful thing is I do not have to lie. So when I go in them places, whatever they want to ask me, it's there. All my stories been on the TV. My dirty laundry's been on the air. I don't have no more secrets. And it feels good not to lie and not to play no games with nobody. You know what I mean? And if somebody accept you, they accept you. If they don't, Merry Christmas.
Tell me, Roach, I've said several times, through the weeks and certainly even today, that this is unapologetically a Washington, D.C. program where we look to export all the good things about Washington, D.C., its culture, its history, its people, that are so dynamic. Talk to me about the justice system in Washington, D.C. now. What are some of the problems? What are some of the perils? What are some of the fixes?
It hurts, Rock. I mean, it really, really hurts. I go down to juvenile court, and I just walk through there, and all you see is us. We know that there's two sets of laws, one for them and one for us. And I see that we get...
So when you say one for them and one for us, you're talking about there's a set of laws, there's sort of apartheid. There's criminal justice apartheid. is what you are referring
Yes,
to.
that's right.
That black folks
Yeah.
get the really short end of the stick.
At a town hall meeting with the chief of police, the chief judge of Superior Court, the U.S. attorney, it was all there. And we spoke and I said, I have a question. One question. Why is it when you go to juvenile court, all you see is black and Hispanic defendants? I went in the courtroom and asked the judge, because my son was going through 16 years old. And I said, Your Honor, it doesn't seem right that you can lock my son up, you can beat him, you can kill him, and I can't touch him to get him on the right direction. You know what I mean? I said, if you give me 10 minutes with him in the back room, we ain't going to come back down here no more. Right. So when we go around the country, we see it again. The student to prison pipeline, they're locking up kids 8, 9, 10 years old for disciplinary, administrative reasons and sending them to prison. The judge in Pennsylvania.
Oh, my God. Please talk about that for a moment.
Man, he was locking up kids. He had a contract with one of the private prisons. And no matter what the kid was brought in from, whether it was just throwing trash or fighting on the playground or pulling some girl's hair, he was sending these kids to the detention facility. Right. 8, 9, 10 years old. Right. And Rock, that...
Getting paid. The judge was getting paid.
He got paid over $2 million, man, for doing this. He and another judge. Now they gave him 28 years. Then he filed an appeal and said he got too much time. When you give a kid 9 or 10 years old one day, Rock, I was locked up at 9. Brother, that was almost worse than solitary because you were vulnerable. Right, you don't have you're nothing. And you want mama to come get you out of there. Sure. And they dog it. Our kids, man, is being the fastest growing prison population is black women. Now they're locking up mamas and grandmamas. The kids is already in the pipeline. Our whole race, man, is being incarcerated. A long time ago, they called it plantation. Now it's called incarceration. When they get money, it's a subsidy or grant. We get money, it's called welfare. You know what I mean? The day they call them homeless. When you and I come through, they were called bums and vagrants. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. The name changed, but the game is the same.
Yeah, and someone who's not so politically popular these days, Cornel West.
Yeah.
Cornel West made a comment that I sort of hold on to, that in spite of sort of that picture being painted, we must remain, we've talked a lot about jails, but we must remain prisoners of hope.
Yeah.
And, thank God for your voice, in the community, Roach. I really appreciate you coming here today. This is a fascinating story, as I know it would be. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Rock.
And continued success in all that you do.
And guess what?
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
God bless you. Folks, that wraps up the Rock Newman Show for today. We'll see you next week. Same time, same place at Busboys and Ports in the Langston Hughes Room, 14th and V Street, Northwest Washington, D.C. And don't forget, if you or some of your friends missed part of this program, tonight you will be able to hear all it in its entirety on 1480 AM. You can hear that in D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. And if you was so fascinated by part of what you heard here today and want to hear more of it, go to rocknewmanshow.com and you'll be able to see it starting later this evening. Like us on Facebook. Please do that, The Rock Newman Show, and also on Twitter. Until next week, we're going to sign off saying God bless you and have a great weekend.